episode 139. I think it's 139. 139. It's going to be one of the craziest episodes I think we've done today because
you need to do a little bit more
on
screaming
fire.
in the intro. Okay, if you're really
Plat Chat Overwatch 139. Woo! Let's go! Everything's on fire! Yay! This is
there we go.
Amazing.
The emergency episode.
Yeah, the late emergency episode.
Yeah.
We started a bit late here on YouTube and Twitch, and for probably like a good 10 minutes, people thought we were gonna miss a week again, and just like in despair, just like no,
crying right in the street.
Not this week. No, don't worry, we're here. Plat Chat Overwatch 139. The usual crew these days, I suppose. So Overwatch, it feels like it's on fire. It feels like everything is on fire. It feels like everything is horrible. But I don't really think that's the case, okay? I think we're maybe overreacting a little bit.
Oh no, the copium.
So, you know, the opium, dude, I'm fucking ready to go, dude. I have like a fucking, one of those like gas tanks, you know? Like one of those like dense, almost like fire extinguisher kind of tanks. I just had that like right next to my bed. And when I sleep, I like strap on this hopium mask and I just sleep for 8 hours in just breathing in all the hopium. So I'm good, Custa.
Okay.
You're not feeling good?
Do not attach a fire extinguisher to a mask.
I said it was like a fire extinguisher. But yeah, I'm good to go. Are you guys not feeling good? What's going on?
Just a tank. It's just a tank. You don't have to get. It's just an air.
I have
tank.
2 of them right there. You can't see them, but I have 2 of them right there, pumping CO2 into the beautiful.
Are you pumping a hopium to the fishes?
Yeah, the CO2 hopium. Yeah, that's it. They need some mad hopium right now.
But yeah, I mean, we'll skip the mod segments to start the week, I suppose, and just get into the actual news and what happened. So let's start a bit objectively first. Like, what actually happened yesterday? What went down? Obviously, a lot to happen with like the transfer deadline. That's August 18th, and some teams looking to make some moves. There's some rumors going around. But let's stick to the facts first, or like what actually happened, and then we'll delve into rumors. You know, we'll speculate a little bit. But let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. So let's start with the Paris Eternal then. Who made a massive move yesterday, dropped 4 players, brought in 4 new ones. This is a franchise that's 1-13. They lost to the Vancouver Titans over the weekend. The players knew that they were getting dropped as they were playing the game, I believe.
Yeah,
I'm right.
I mean, 100%. They announced it the next day. They didn't just like cut them in one day after losing Titans.
Well, I mean, there is the rumor. Well, have you heard the rumors about Washington?
I have heard the rumors about Justice, but let's be honest, that's definitely not the craziest rumor about Justice. That's way worse rumors.
Yeah, that's a lot going on. But anyway, what I was saying is like, if the Paris Eternal lost the Vancouver Titans, to some person that could have been like, oh, that seems reasonable. Like maybe that was the last straw, whatever. But they actually just like were informed before they even played the game. So that might have, lent a hand to their pretty lackluster performance, not, being as motivated and, ready to play as they perhaps usually were. So feel bad for the guys. But they replaced 4 players. They bring in part of Odyssey, Lucamino, Ragatak, Malthel, who's their Genji player. But then they bring in Krawi as well. I'm just going through all of it, and then we can discuss it. Who is the tank player for Wisp. Obviously, Odyssey, part of their team, they won the A sides of contenders in the Junker Queen meta, mind you. So very relevant. And then Krawi got 2nd place on Wisp, so they don't pick up Vulcan as well. What do we make of all this? Obviously, a huge move from the Paris Eternal. Do we like the pickups? Just general thoughts.
Seems good. I like, my big confusion is like, why didn't they do it during the 3-week break that we just came out of? Like, obviously, there's a lot of paperwork and stuff that needs to be sorted for that, but like, it seems weird that it happens in the middle of the season. And, we all watched the Paris Eternal play this most recent weekend. That was the most lifeless performance I've seen in a really long time. Like, they just straight up fell over against the 0-13 Vancouver Titans. So I'm excited to see some of this new blood come in. A lot of these guys have sort of been poised. Like we've talked about, Rack Attack and stuff like that. Luke Mino potentially coming to the league in the past. But it's cool to see them come together as a unit because I think that always leads to more. As you said, they're actually just 1 A-sides playing this meta, obviously on a slightly different patch, but the theory's all there. So I'm excited to see these guys get their opportunity. Do I think they're going to come in and like dominate the league? No, but I think they'll be better than the current iteration. Well, the most recent iteration of the Paris Eternal.
Yeah. I mean, I think also right now, Overwatch fans, they're on the Doomium, you know? Like, you are on the Hopium, everyone's
they
on the
should
Doomium.
be.
Which, as they should be in many ways, but also the Doomium, it's when we think about roster moves, we don't view it objectively anymore, right? Like, nowadays, if the roster move occurs, everyone's like, now this is what the Mayans were talking about in 2012. Like, everyone's just like, they're like, this is the stone calendar fucking saying again that the world's ending and we're all going to drown in blood, etc. It's like, the Eternal were they were, what were they, 1 and 12, 1 and 11? What was their 13?
1 and 12, 1 and 12, yeah.
Like, they were 1 and 12. And like, the roster, I mean, it was ass. The roster was ass. The team was ass. Like, don't get me wrong, some individual talent on the team, but it was very clear they were co-oping. They were fucking just, it was just awful. It was an awful, awful team. It was not good. So, like, roster moves like this should not be surprised. Like, it just, you would expect any team that's like doing awfully to replace a ton of players, you know? Like, it's once again the timing. It's the timing of it here, right?
It's the
like,
timing,
that's what it is.
And also, I think there's some added kind of like disappointment from the fans as well, because this was genuinely like a fun and exciting franchise last year that obviously with a get amazed as head coach, like they upset a lot of teams. They came in, brought some fun strategies with like Naga playing the Pharah. They played like wrecking ball compositions. Like they were genuinely exciting and looked like an up-and-comer that brought in a lot of European contenders talent and exceeded expectations, almost like the one on Spitfire this year. And people expected them to continue with that and improve upon that. But instead, they made some coaching changes during the offseason. They picked up Callister. They got rid of Naga and made some changes that I think just led to this massive disappointment of this year. And so I think an element of people being upset about it is the fact that people genuinely had like hopes for this team this year, and it all went like down the drain so quick, so sudden, and just led to this.
I think that's what people need to be mad at. And like, obviously you can be mad with the Doomium that Avast is saying, but if you're like looking for where I think the fundamental failure happened, it was the removal. Like, they had a functioning team that was good, and instead of building on top of that, they decided to remove the head coach, take out one of their best hit scans in Onigard, and then replace it with a Korean head coach and a Korean player, which we can just assume at this point did not work. Like Glista barely even played for this team. J-Mac, we haven't really heard much from, and their results, haven't shown. And I think that is really where everything went wrong. So, I feel bad for the players. I feel like they were not put in a great situation to succeed, but at the end of the day, they just weren't performing at the highest level. And I'm excited to see the new players. I think this is probably a move as well. It's already been announced by Paris Eternal that next year they're going to be the Vegas Eternal or something like that. So they have picked up essentially a fully North American roster at this point. They have 6 American players and 1 Mexican player, I believe it is. So, I'm excited to see these guys really get their shot. And hopefully, my big fear is that these players don't perform well in the back half of the season with very little practice, very little run up, and then they just like a bunch of them get dropped and don't really get the opportunity to prove themselves.
You do say that they haven't had little practice, but they've still been playing in contenders with the Junker Queen banner. So it's like, yeah, sure, they haven't played against the Overwatch League teams, or I don't know, maybe they fucking have. Like, there's definitely been some scrims between the lower tier teams and contenders teams in the past. So maybe that's still the case, but they still I think they're still going to find better success because they're playing for a long time on the patch. So I'd be surprised if they don't do better than the Paris Eternal that just played. Let's discount the last match the Paris Eternal just played, but previous tournament or tournament cycle.
Yeah, like I've been going through. I haven't had a chance to like watch all their matches or anything yet, but like I've gone through like half the finals between them and Wisp, and like they look good playing the comp, like Rack Attack and Luke Nino, like the way they alternate their ultimates, just like the way they take fights. I think they actually like look good in this meta. Are they going to compete with like the likes of Shock? No, they're not going to beat the San Francisco Shock. That's even like an individual skill gap that's like very hard to close. But they understand the meta. They have great ultimate rotations. I think Malthel is an interesting Genji player. Will be cool to see if he replaces Wob in that role. It's a bit of a struggling season as well, to be honest. I guess it was a bit surprising to me after having just like, browsed through the finals a little bit that Vulcan didn't get picked up, and instead they opt for Krawi on the Wisp because, you know, just having watched very limited footage, it feels like Vulcan is very much on the same page with Drag Attack, and they have a good idea in a meta that's all about teamwork and, you know, utilizing your abilities well. It feels like Odyssey was very much on the same page, the way they engage, disengage, etc. And Krawi is getting exposed a little bit. But I'll watch more matches. Maybe I'm wrong in that. Maybe Krawi was one of the standouts in the entire A-Sides tournament as a whole. But overall, yeah, I don't think they'll be like a top tier off the bat, but I definitely think they can come in and like be better than like 3-4 teams.
They could definitely collect wins. Like
absolutely.
That's the most important thing
in this
team,
meta
right?
for sure.
To come in, collect some fucking wins, restore some of that hopium, right? I think, you know, especially with the last match that the Paris Eternal played, and knowing that they were going to get dropped, I don't think you can blame them almost at all for their performance, right? You putting yourself in those shoes, never been in that position, by the way, but like if I were to put myself in that shoes, would I be giving it my all? Probably, but would I be like sweating? Like, do you know that fucking meme where the guy's fucking sweating, like smashing his keyboard and shit like that? Would I be doing that? Probably not, knowing that I'm going to get dropped. It is a shame because Europe has a lot to offer in terms of talent for Overwatch, and this happens a lot with European players. It's kind of
this is like the fifth dissolution of like a European team within the Overwatch League, and it's just like okay. Well, I have a question for you guys. So they're playing the Atlanta Reign this weekend.
GLHF.
Is that a pred we have later?
No, it isn't a pred. I made sure to look for it and make sure it wasn't a pred. Yeah. Unless I just got it wrong. So I saw that it wasn't a pred. So what do you guys think? Because like Atlanta looked pretty tragic in this meta thus far. If Paris comes in with experience in the combat, what chance do you think that Paris win against Atlanta?
That's a 70-30. 70%
to Atlanta?
Atlanta, yeah.
I think there's a good chance Paris wins.
The only reason why I say that is because you just give them a fucking week, bro. You give them a week, Kai, reflex aim, dude, they're going to pop off. They're going to fucking pop off. I still have a lot of faith in Atlanta Reign, right? Yeah, they kind of like met during the regular season and then just kind of slap in tournaments, but I don't know. I think it would be a little bit of an upset if Paris come in and just start swinging their cocks around and smack Atlanta Reign down. We'll see, though.
Yeah. It's hard to say, especially in this meta. And we'll get to talking about this meta a bit later on the show. I think we'll cover some more transfer stuff. Let's jump over to another signing that happened yesterday and was announced in the middle of this with a lot of rumors surrounding the Washington Justice. Also, Uprising, they announced that they had acquired the rights to Mag's contract in a pretty... I mean, I guess it wasn't as surprising because there was the rumors about Washington shopping their players. But still, like Boston Uprising, picking up a tank player. This is something they like to do. Picking up tank players is one of their favorite pastimes. And so they pick up Mag, which I think is a pretty interesting pickup. You know, we know that Mag is a talented player, but also he looked like one of the better Junker Queens in week one. So what do we make of this move?
I find this signing, the Boston Uprising, to be a very... I mean, I'm pretty much hoping they hold on to him long term. Because right now, Punk looked really good when he played Junker Queen. I don't think this moves. This only matters if they're going to play, if there's somehow a meta shift on stage 4 and main tank is back in business, you know? Because like Punk looks good.
They've tried to bench Punk so many goddamn times, and this man is still standing in the league. Like stand one, Ibushi, fucking Marvel, Itzel. And now Mag is on the list. Punk will prevail.
Itzel, holy fuck.
Itzel's still on a 2-way contract, by the way. He's not gone from the Boston Uprising, but he's... Yeah. I just don't see what Mag... To me, this is like possibly, especially in this current state of the meta, this is like... Now, granted, I bet this has worked out way before that Punk... Maybe they didn't think Punk was going to be as good in the matches as he's been, right? Maybe it's like a match buff for Punk versus like scrims, which is why they wanted to pursue this trade, which makes sense. But on face value seen after Punk's performed, this is like quite possibly this is like not even a great trade for Boston considering the current meta. Like now, if there's suddenly a main tank shift, then I think it works out really well for them. So it's good to have Mag on their roster for main tanks. But for right now, like there are probably a bunch of other teams that would love to get Mag to play Junker Queen for them. So, you know.
Well, okay, let's take it one step further then. I think we're all kind of middling on MAG as of now. Let's Boston Uprising, they're likely to make the play-ins. Obviously, we have no idea what the meta is going to be for the play-ins, but let's imagine there'll be anything but the Junker Queen meta. Do we think that MAG can be like an upgrade over itself and contribute to Uprising's play-in success?
Yes.
Yeah. But the question is he worth the salary that they probably took for him? You know, Mag came in as one of the most hyped rookie players to the Washington Justice last year. He's probably still on a pretty high contract. Plus, they just purchased the trade. They didn't give anything for him. So I think he's always going to be an upgrade for this team. But the question is he worth the money that they're going to pay for him in a season in which they're already struggling, right? It's not like Mag's going to come in and all of a sudden they're a championship contender or anything like that. I just think it's a minor upgrade. So I just don't really completely understand the move by Boston. I'm glad, I'll say this. I'm glad they're at least investing in their team and that they're putting steps to try and be better because, the Washington Justice, as you said, are not doing that.
Well, you know who they need back now that sorry, Jaws, I'm going to make this point and then piggyback off of it real quick. You know who they need back when we talk about investments and now that Huck's gone and maybe there's a chance? Striker. Striker comes back to Boston. We bring Striker back. I'm putting the hypothetical out there because guess what? Boston won their match versus Atlanta because Victoria and Valentine looked sick. On top of Punk. Punk looked amazing too, right? But like their team overall looked sick. Their DPS showed up. The match they lost, their DPS were invisible. They need more consistent DPS. So, of course, you bring back Striker. You just make sure you have a bunch of extra keyboards you can smash. Yeah, you just make sure you give him a big inventory of keyboards he can smash, and then he'll be good. It'll be good. All right, there we go. Now, Jaws, you can go.
No, what I was just going to say, it's not going to pay off until we hit another patch or like another tournament, playoffs or whatever. Like I kind of like the pickup, honestly. I think Mag's still a very good main tank player. But I think Punk right now is probably a better Junker Queen. I think Punk has looked like one of the better Junker Queens in the league currently. It's been a week, obviously. Things can change, and they probably will end up doing so. But I think Punk right now is stood out amongst the rest of the queens that we've seen. A lot of them, it's a different playstyle to a lot of tanks. It feels like the Outlaws have got it right in a sense. They put Dante on it because it doesn't really play. It doesn't really play like Doomfist. Like they're two very different characters, but they feel way more DPS like. I remember when me and you, Scott, were playing in the fucking beta, and it was like, this feels like a fucking DPS hero. Like the hitbox feels like a fucking DPS hero, and you commanding shout, and then you fucking send a Genji, and I think it plays very differently to a lot of what tank as a role has been historically, and so I don't see Mag playing over Punk, to be honest. If they do, well, okay.
Mag was really good though. Like that's the thing. Mag was really impressive as a Junker Queen.
I will say, just because Punk has had so much more time as well with the rest of the team. If they start slotting Mag in, I don't think they're going to have success off the bat at all. I think it's going to be a slow burn thing for the Boston Uprising. I do like the pick overall though.
Yeah, I think I've been one of the biggest critics, I suppose, of Mag and some of his play, like pointed out some of the flaws in his play and like where it's gone wrong for the Washington Justice in past metas. But it's also a case of like he was on the Washington Justice. The Washington Justice for the longest time, they've been in a pretty difficult situation. They don't seem to have figured out some of the issues they've been going through. And that doesn't necessarily have to be on Mag as an individual player. Doesn't mean that he's like the linchpin of everything that goes wrong with that team. And so I'm excited to see Mag in a different environment. I'm excited to see him in a different team, under a different coaching staff, perhaps have a different role in the team where maybe like Punk becomes like the primary tank player for the Boston Uprising, and then Mag has like a dedicated role. He can come in and, do a job that Boston Uprising wants to see done. So as someone who's, given Mag a lot of flack in the past, I'm really excited to see him in a new environment. I think there was an assistant coach of Shock. Sorry, I can't remember the exact name, who tweeted out something like, the players of the Vancouver Titans and Paris Eternal, they're not like that much worse than like your average Overwatch League player. They're just like in an environment that's really like doesn't lend, aid their ability to like improve as a team. They don't have as many resources and stuff like that. And so I genuinely think that players in teams they are struggling if they get a chance to be in a new environment and a new team under a new coaching staff, that can make like a massive difference to their play and how comfortable they are in play, how confident they are in their play, and maybe open up a new chapter. So for Mag joining the Boston Uprising, I'm excited to see what he can show us, and I think it's a pretty good signing. I think Mag is like a better main tank player. If you look at like Winston, Reinhardt, maybe Wrecking Ball, not as much, but better on those heroes than a lot of other players in contenders or even the Overwatch League. So I think it's a pretty decent pickup. I think Boston Uprising, they recognized there was, a play at hand and they pulled it off. So good for them. Yeah, there you go. Boston Uprising. Mag. So normally with Bren on the show, we don't really address rumors or anything like that. But since he's no longer on the show, let's address some rumors. So Washington Justice is obviously the team that most people are talking about as of right now. There was an article that came out, I believe, that talked about the fact that Washington Justice, they were shopping some of their players before the transfer deadline, citing, I think it was less confidence in the league when it comes to acquiring the financial sponsorship, stuff like that.
Yes.
And so they wanted to downsize their roster, spend a little bit less. And I suppose we can start it. This sort of comes back to almost like the Paris Eternal point of, this roster not working out for this team. Obviously, they spent a lot of money on these players. It's a very talented roster. We expected more, but it's just perpetually been disappointing that they haven't lived up to that potential. So do we think this is like the right move for the Washington Justice? Can we expect some of these players being offloaded, or what do we think?
The right move for the Justice. Well, I mean, there are two definitions of right moves.
Well, I mean, you could also just be like, no, I think the Washington Justice, like, they have a talented roster, like they should be getting in, like, a new head coach, or like they should find a different way.
I think it just depends on what we are currently like, because let's not. I mean, we've acknowledged it. These teams are burning money. They're burning money, and to be fair, this isn't just an Overwatch League problem. It's really not. Like, every esport team in every game is struggling to make money off of esports. Like, and also, you know what? This is a crazy stat. I didn't even realize this. Someone pointed out like the LCS viewership right now, the largest game on earth.
Tragic.
The LCS viewership is tragic. It's like it's, and that's like no one talks about that. But I was like, oh my, I didn't even know. Like, I knew it wasn't that good. Like, I thought it was like meh, but like it's bad right now. So like, and those teams, like the contracts you're looking at, like in LCS, are orders of magnitude larger.
One player is worth the whole roster.
Millions.
Right,
Yeah.
in the LCS.
Yeah, millions.
Millions. Like Bjergsen and like when Double Lep was playing and shit like that.
Just crazy.
Millions
Well, also
dollars.
the expectations are just higher too for like everything attached to it, all the benefits, the housing, like stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's so. The reality is the Justice have probably been burning cash for a long time, and Overwatch League also still at the end of the day at the current state, because it's just it's purgatory. No one knows what's going to happen. It's not doing great on its own currently. It's not doing amazingly, and everyone's just waiting for Overwatch 2.
TBLOL, Paul.
Like, look at that.
Look at that, yeah.
Look at that. Look at that drop. That's insane. That's insanity. For League of Legends.
I'm going to be real. I actually can't believe LCK Spring is number one. I was very surprised when I saw these numbers. I thought it was going to be LEC at the top.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit shocked. But I mean, LCK do the fucking region slap, so kind of makes sense.
So
That's just
overall,
a
like,
small
to me,
league,
from
so-
just an organizational perspective, I think also people assume that like cutting costs is inherently a bad thing. In a way, it's bad for players and for staff and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you have to cut costs, or else these orgs are just going to fold. They're just going to fold and they'll be gone. Like, if you burn cash for a million years, like they might just pull a Valiant, and just be like, well, actually, we're just going to like lay off all of our players and sell our slot, right? And we'll give it to anyone, literally anyone. And now we got No Hill sleeping with 4 other players in a room, and like, it's just like, there's...
Yeah, I didn't add this topic because I genuinely forgot, but we should address the DPEI tweet and the No Hill.
We'll talk
picture.
DPEI No Hill, right?
Yeah,
We can
do
just
that.
do
Yeah.
it. But like,
yeah, we can do it later.
to me, I think Justice made the right move from their bottom line. I just think, to me, like, they must have just woken up from a coma, because I don't understand how they started at the beginning of this year, agreed to all the contractual agreements, agreed to the salaries, and then halfway through the year, we're like, guys, we're paying so much money. Like, that to me is like, to me, that's the crazy part, because Paris dropping a bunch of players, it's not really monetary related, right? Like, you're all assuming they're close to league minimum, around there anyways. Like, they're not making that much money. We know they're not going to make that much money. It's just their ass. Like, the roster wasn't good. Like, Justice is literally citing that. So,
can I give a bit of an interesting take on this?
Go
I
right
think so. I think a lot of things. Okay, stop. Shut up. I think what's interesting about the way Overwatch League and like a lot of the teams are reacting, and like even other esports like TSM are like rumored to sell their spot. There's another LEC team that was looking to sell their spot or like something.
I mean, my team already did. Misfits sold.
Okay, Misfits, yeah, but it's someone else.
It's someone else. I'm thinking of it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Scott fucking.
I mean, there have been rumors for a million years that G2 has always wanted to exit Europe to go to North America, but
sure, it wasn't G2 though. I know that for sure.
Astralis.
But like, yes, you're right. It was Astralis, and maybe Navi were going to pick them up. But anyway, yeah, it kind of relates to this point. But like, if you look at the global markets currently, like we saw like a big fucking bull run after the coronavirus, right? The coronavirus crash, and then it's been like a steady, like fucking actually not steady. It's been going up quite significantly, and then at the beginning of the year, we then kind of teetered off. And if you look at it, it's like, whoa, hang on a second, are we in a recession? Inflation going fucking sicko mode? Like, I think it's weird to compare the two, where a lot of teams, a lot of orgs are kind of pulling back slightly with money and like maybe looking to sell their spots. Maybe it's something to do with the markets in the real world kind of crashing off too, because that's what generally happens. Like, if we're in a recession, companies end up pulling back slightly, and maybe it has something to do with the reason a lot of orgs are.
The fucking market's getting crashed. We'd have a pre on Chengdu Hunters. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
I'm
true.
just saying, this kind of shit fucking affects every facet of entertainment and every facet of like society. This kind of maybe recession we're in, kind of, or like the inflation rate going up, and I don't know, man. I've got a feeling it's got something to do with it because it's all happening at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like environments where, you know, people heavily invest into like growth spaces like esports. Like, what the fuck is esports? Like, it's almost like an ethereal business. Like, oh, it's the future of sports. It's video games with competitive rules. We're going to invest in it, and just
there is 2 esports ETFs. Let me look them up.
Yeah. Well,
hey, FaZe had like a short squeeze on it recently.
They actually did. FaZe kind of clapped the other day.
FaZe like SPAC kind of popped off.
Actually, short squeeze. Yeah, it like fucking plummeted like most IPOs do, and then it just and then everybody was like, "Oh, FaZe is fucked, everybody," because you know everybody on esports works on a 1 week memory and time span, so like they don't think about next week. And then FaZe kind of went on a small little run. It was kind of insane. Yeah, there you go. The Van Eck Video Game and Esports ETF beta shares. Video games and esports ETF and round.
What is happening? Laugh at beta shares.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, if there was an ETF to do with esports, it would definitely be called Beta Shares. So, or owned by Beta Shares at least.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, I just found that really funny.
I want to agree with Jack as well. Like, someone came into my chat and they were like, "Why is this only happening in the West? Why is this not happening in the East?" It's like, this did happen in the East as well. Like a month ago, remember when we had the Chengdu Hunters didn't sign a Pritter, as Johnny said, the Guangzhou Charge have completely flipped their roster. That might be more like roster roles dependent.
Well, that team was actually bad.
That team was actually bad, but like, and then you have the Valiant. Like, there's been so many things that have been done in the guise of monetary, like it just didn't make sense. And I think it's not bad. I agree with Avast of the teams need to get to a sustainable point in which they can function without being like, we have to win, otherwise it's just not valuable. And like the Washington Justice, even if they were winning, this potentially could have happened because, as Jack said, we are going into at least some form of a recession. We're seeing not just the Overwatch League and not other esports, like endemic organizations have been heavily pulling back on staff right now. We're seeing a lot of layoffs in the endemic organization space. So it's like, it's just, esports is not profitable. And Overwatch League right now, as Avast said, is just setting fire to money, hand over fist for a lot of these teams, just because that's the nature of the game. People bought into the Overwatch League for the hype of the 2018, 2019 situation. And since then, with COVID, with going online, with everything that's happened with the company and the league, it's just not making money. So looking to the future in Overwatch 2 and the future of the Overwatch League, teams need to get to a sustainable angle so that we can actually function as a league without having 3 to 4 teams implode every season, because it just makes the league and everything feel fucking awful. Like, do you guys feel good about the league right now? No, like it feels terrible. It feels like we are straight up dying. And I've never seen more questions of people saying, is the league dying? Oh, this is the last season of the Overwatch League. It's not the last season of the Overwatch League, probably. But it's not just going to fail, but teams, it needs to pull back a lot, right? Like, it just needs to find a good middle ground.
Yeah. you want to jump over to the DPEI and?
Well, we haven't really talked. I mean, we only talked about the financial aspects. We didn't actually talk about any of the other aspects of the Justice of like what does this mean for their season. Let's say it. Their season, probably. If you expect Justice to be good, probably not. They probably
Are they going to drop
this.
more players? Do you think? Like how? Like because
are they going to drop more play? Oh yes, they're going to drop.
They have to do it in the next 2 days then, right? Like August 18th, they need to do it.
I mean, this is a whole other can of worms, man. Is this whole fucking August 18th? So essentially, we should just explain this because people might be confused. Because yesterday I received a no joke because there's a bunch of shit happening too at my work, but in between this, I saw all this shit happening. It was like it's like a black hole that suddenly discovered in our star system, and we're slowly being sucked into it, you know. But pretty much August 18th is the trend. We're gonna explain this in simple terms because I've gotten the truth. The light has hit me. I understand everything as it is. So August 18th is the trade deadline. That means by August 18th, you had to have traded players to another Overwatch League team or drop them, so that way they can be picked up for another team for the rest of the season. Because if you drop them on or if you drop them after August 18th, they can't be re-signed to another Overwatch League team. That is 100% confirmed from the head office of the Overwatch League and by many GMs. The thing is,
Mitch just tweeted that out as well. Yeah.
The thing is that yesterday there was confusion because I believe that to be the case, and then some people that should know, but it's not their fault. But I would say people, it's sort of like the front office areas of Overwatch League teams message me being like, "That's not true. If you drop, like, they have to be like they're pretty much if they have been dropped even before August 18th, they can't get re-signed, right, or something like that." Which like that's what I was told, which is why I was like, "Oh shit, is everything fucked?" But then it turns out that because of some inconsistent messaging from the league and things like that, there was confusion. But confirmed, August 18th, players have to be dropped by then if they want to be re-signed for the rest of the year or traded, you know, if they want to play for the rest of the season. So that was like what all that mess was yesterday on the timeline for a lot of people because there was like literally like GMs figuring this out real time yesterday. Literally figuring out how,
which is a problem in its own right. Yes, the GMs aren't aware of the trade deadlines, right? Like,
so it was fucking crazy yesterday. Is all I'm gonna say. But the second point is Justice on a competitive level. This team will not be as good, which is also crazy because they looked pretty good when they played like against the Shock. They looked like a pretty good team. They look like the best team they've been all year. Literally the best team they've been all year, and. Whatever they do, so the players are likely going to be dropped. It seems like it. They've already sold off because if you think about it, they don't even have a tank. They don't have a tank.
Well, they have Kalios, right?
Well, but they have a tank, but not the one that they've been playing.
Not the one
with,
they've been playing either. Yeah.
Are they just up this weekend and field a roster and like just good luck where you go, or are they going to? Sorry, you go, Avast.
I mean, yeah, you got it. Pretty much, whatever they pick up, there's going to be more people gone. 100%. It just depends on the timing of it. Which could cause some questions, I guess, because to me, it already implies justice management when it came to the season were literally asleep at the wheel. They took some Valium or something. Like they woke up in a ditch and they're like, guys, like we're spending money. And they're like, we have to yeet our entire roster that we agreed on at the beginning of the year. When we already knew you weren't going to make any fucking money this year. Or at least you should have known if you were paying attention. And then secondly, there's also like, that worries me that like, what's the timing going to be on the roster releases, right? Like, hopefully they get everything. If they're actually gonna drop everyone, they get everyone out on time, right? Like that's the big thing is working against the clock on this trade deadline. Because if they drop anyone, literally anyone after August 18th, that player cannot be resigned. And contenders lock has already happened. They can't go to contenders team either.
Well, Bradford Ross Pure actually tweeted out the roster moves that occurred due to the Owl trade line will be considered in regards to the NA contenders B-sides roster lock. We will grant exceptions if a team's player has joined an Owl team, meaning teams can fill their roster and continue in the tournament.
Right.
That's more for contenders. That's more for contenders than Overwatch.
That's just for contenders. Yes, that's for contenders, not for Overwatch League. But still, that's actually one less area bad. Is that at least they could go contenders.
Well, yeah. So I think the way to read this tweet is if like a contenders team, a top contenders team or whatever, they have a player that gets promoted to Owl, they have an exception to fill that slot, and they could maybe bring in a former Overwatch League.
Yes, if they were potentially, okay, gotcha. Well, that's good. Though. That's
but it's exceptions, so it's still a bit fucky, but it's not fucked. So, yeah. Make it that what we got.
So that was the whole rant I had with that. That was
sure.
It.
But I guess for the Washington Justice, I mean, they've been wanting to be successful now, since they were in the league, of course. But like the past 2 years, they still had faith, I'd like to believe, that they were going to be like a top tier team, and like they have the K on their roster and they signed Vigilante. Like they obviously wanted to achieve something with this roster, and it's just consistently underperformed. Like they didn't even make the fucking midseason madness. So one part of me can kind of like see them missing out on mid-season madness, spending this much money, and just being like, fuck it. Honestly, dude, fuck it. Like, really. So, you know, it sucks, and it's a bit of a last-minute kind of panic mode thing, but I can like understand where they're coming from in terms of like disappointment that they never were able to compete with some of the better teams.
Yeah, I mean, but where do the players go? There's all sorts of places. Mag's already gone. Happy, I could see Happy. You know what? If Boston just pick up like Happy too, and they pick up the K.
I mean,
I don't see that mean. Yeah, can you imagine if Crusoe and Decay came back together?
That would be fucking sick in this meta if they pick up Happy and Decay. But I mean, like, there's a ton of teams where like there's like think of any team that has like a hit scan that they're not happy with, like totally happy with, and Happy will be a great addition. Think of any team that wants a better Genji player for this meta.
Well,
like
it is funny because they have 3 damage players and they have 3 support players, and I guess you need 6. What's the minimum roster size? So how many do they have now?
6.
They have 7
6.
now, right?
Yeah.
Do they have 7 now?
Because it's Kalios, Happy.
Yeah, they have 7 now.
Yeah,
so
7.
technically, they can only get rid of 1 more player before they have to start replacing people because of the roster minimum. So I feel like there's just 7. Well, not Kalio. So I guess there's like 6 players, 3 damage players, and 3 support players, and they're all like Spider-Man memeing each other. It's like who's going to be the one who actually like leaves our roster before the.
So do you? So Johnny, the way you're thinking it's going to work is that they're just going to offload 1 more player instead of dropping their entire roster
minimum.
Well, okay, yeah, no, but if we're going to go down the rumor mill as well, there's the rumor right now that they're potentially looking at Team Peps, the European contenders team, which has a lot of familiar faces that people are aware of. Your Ben Best, Naga, that team.
So you think they just nuke their roster and just pick up Team Peps?
That's what, like, think about it. A lot of their play, like, how much do you think Happy is on their roster right now? How much do you think Decay is on their roster right now? They can sign
probably a lot,
they can sign a roster.
Sign an team with Decay.
No. Actually, I think it came out in that Yiska article that Decay actually.
No, their budget, but the thing is, their budget's been adjusted. Like, so I think people are working on 2 conflicting points of view with the Justice. So the first 2 years of the Overwatch League, the Justice were big money buku buck spenders, like huge spenders. The past 2 years, they were moderate. Like they're still above average in terms of spending, right? Like if you baked up the Yiska article, they're more than like in terms of like half the league, they're spending more than them in terms of rosters, but they're not the most expensive roster anymore. Like Decay and Happy and Mag and all them, they didn't have ridiculous contracts, but also on top of that, they probably have the highest contracts on the Justice. Well, like players like Opener, like Krillin, like, you know, maybe even Vigilante potentially. Like those players are not going to have, and Kalios, those players are not going to have very big salaries, you know? So there is a bit of an ill-informed narrative where people still thought Justice was insane spenders, but the reality is they were a mid-tier spender. They weren't cheap, but they weren't like spending insane amounts of money. They were just spending like a solid amount. But they probably still have, it's probably evened out by the fact that like some of their players are expensive, some of their players are probably really cheap. Like, you know, like I said, the Openers and the Kalioses. So like, it just depends on the contract here for the Justice. But like, I'm on the Custa side. I think everything tells me that like, if they've yeeted Mag, who arguably is probably the most, if you think about like how the team's been built and how they've been playing, he's probably their most, your tank is like your most important piece in terms of how you're moving in Overwatch 2 right now. I think this roster's gone. I think the Team Peps rumor is probably going to happen. They probably already have the roster signed, right? Like it doesn't matter. The roster minimum rules don't matter because they probably
have the roster already signed.
Yeah, they probably already have the roster signed.
I'm with Avast. I don't think they're just. There's no way that they drop Mag and don't full commit. Like, why would they just drop their most important main tank and the person who's playing in this meta for them and then not just full send? Like, I would be shocked if they kept Happy and Decay at this point, because if you're going to get rid of Mag, you may as well get rid of Happy and Decay, sign a couple of DPS, sign another like tank, and then like go into the sunset with a minimum and an average team.
Yeah, this is where it kind of sucks because it hasn't obviously been announced yet, but there seems to be a lot of players or even like people within the community who like have the juice, like they know what's going on and it hasn't been announced yet, and so we can't talk about it. I don't have any insight, so I don't know. I have no fucking idea what's going on, but there seems to be. Like everyone just talks about all of the Washington Jews. You're like, oh, you have no idea what's going on with Washington, and it seems to be like a big deal, but it's not announced. We can't talk about it.
All we need to do is go to any one of our Twitch chats at any moment in time, and they probably have more information than we do because, you know.
Oh yeah, the Twitch chat. They're
the Twitch chat. Yeah.
Okay, wait, while we're here, can we talk about this fucking owners meeting rumor going around? Okay, there is no sources, there is no validity to anything that is going on there. If you are in Reddit or a fucking Twitch chat and you're talking about the owners meeting, you have no idea what you're talking about, okay? Owners meetings happen all the time. Yes, there may be people who are in the scene who understand and know the owners meeting, but they are not valid sources of information because you can't just take something as fact, because I've had multiple people come to me and say, did you hear about the owners meeting? I heard Overwatch 2 is going to be delayed, and that's what they talked about. There is like 7 levels of jumping to get to Overwatch 2 is going to be delayed. Even if there is truth to that in any way, you can't just make those massive assumptions, and people are just taking them as fact because they read it on Reddit or some shit. Like, just stop it.
Yeah, that's where like why I wanted to introduce this show and just be like, there were some objective like roster drops and signings that happened yesterday, and then there was a lot of speculation and rumor going on at the same time yesterday, combined with DPEI tweets, and it just entered like a blur, and people were freaking the fuck out, and they were like, Overwatch League is dying, where everything's going to shit, and it's like, well, hold on now, what actually happened yesterday? Paris replaced 4 players, and Boston Uprising picked up Mag from
it's like
Washington.
The kids game telephone or whatever you guys called it. You pick up the phone, you say the thing, you pass it to the next person, you tell them, and fucking it just gets garbled mess by the end of it, and then it turns out fucking Overwatch 3 is coming out instead of Overwatch 2, you know? Like, this shit just gets scrambled so quickly with all the Reddit and the Twitch chat and the... Yeah, and I think a lot of it, Scott, as well, because I did watch your stream and you went off and it was very funny. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I do enjoy the Custa rants on your Twitch channel sometimes. But it is quite funny watching that kind of narrative build within like 10 minutes. Like, people take one thing as fact, and like you said, there's multiple layers of it. And at some point, there's a lot of like intellectual dishonesty. Like, you know it's fucking bullshit, but you want to perpetuate it anyway because it's more fun for you, and maybe it fulfills your narrative, and maybe it fulfills your kind of ideal world in which you live in. And there's a lot of I think there's a lot of shit like that goes around. And there's obviously the people that just want the clips and the clout on the Reddit and on Twitter and shit like that too. But I think if you just step back for 5 minutes and you're like, wait, okay, did this really fucking happen? And then you kind of unravel the layers and you're like, okay, maybe something happened that caused this fucking load of bullshit, but like not these 7 other things piled on top of it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm not saying that Washington Justice isn't going to drop their whole roster if that's what they're looking to do in sign Team Peps. I'm not saying, like that rumor about Washington and the Overwatch League financial situation. I'm not saying that that's not true, but until it actually happens, or until there's like actually something official comes out and there's just like not some tier 2 guy tweeting shit out, then you can't just take it as fact. Like, you gotta chill out a bit and like wait for actually like official information to come out, and then you can assess the information afterwards and then make a like judgment whether it was fair, whether it was unfair, whether it's shitty, whether it's good. There's just so many different perspectives. There's so many different sides of a story. There's so many rumors going on that sometimes you just have to take a step back. So, let's enjoy the Overwatch League while we have it this year anyway.
And everything's dead.
Okay, dude. There's the clip. There's the fucking clip.
There it is.
Johnny confirms owners said the league is dying.
There's the clip. Okay. Well, yeah, I think we've talked this to death. So
yeah, we didn't really talk about the Washington players and where they're going. But yeah, there you go.
I said they should all go to Boston. Boston will actually be incredible. I legitimately, if they get happy decay, Boston's going to be fucking insane.
Boston's going to be insane. I can't wait for them to pick up Assassin and replace Valentine. That's going to be good. Yeah, do you guys want to chat about the DPEI and No Hill thing, or have we already kind of
talk about it?
Let's hit it.
Second. Because DPEI, I mean, that is an official tweet that if a coach of the Vancouver Titans made, and then deleted, right? So
DPEI wants healthcare. He wants a Vancouver Titans jersey. He wants to have a team event, and he doesn't want to pay for every team dinner for the Vancouver Titans. And he's been asking since he joined the team, please. And then that tweet was removed.
I love the shockwave bit at the bottom there. That was very... Telling you to delete Liz, lol, deleted.
Was in fact deleted.
Props to shockwave.
Gone. And then I think we should combo with No Hill. With the No Hill stuff too.
Yeah, the No Hill picture was pretty haunting today. Yeah.
The no hill looked like something out of like what you're walking around in a horror game and you look for like the photos like that are like falling around. And you find that like it looked really scary.
Oh god.
It looks like a Minecraft bed.
It does. It looks like my first
yeah.
Minecraft bed just so I can sleep. So when I die, I
Yeah,
can go back to this room.
You are far off.
So notice the space. Notice actually, but who's that lady that's really good at decluttering stuff? Marie Kondo or whatever.
Yeah.
Like she would love this room because look at the space. Look how optimally used is the space. You have the bed in the middle, which also counts as like because he said it's the meeting room too. Counts as like their conference table. Then you have a player wedged onto each side of the walls. So like they're kind of like a container, like where you can put under the bed a bit. Like this space is so efficiently used here. Marie Kondo would be jumping for joy watching this. But I mean, overall, so what? We got No Hill. We got 4 people to a room. I don't think I've heard about that since like 1800s Ellis Island traveling to America type of stories. And then like we got DPEI saying he doesn't have a jersey, which okay. So by the way, I've heard conflicting info about that, but the interesting part to me more so.
So he does have a jersey.
I'm just saying I've heard conflicting info. You know, about some of the claims that were made on that tweet from David Bay. But I will say that the interesting part is like has he been paying for player salary? Like he said he's paying for player stuff, like paying
player
for
meals,
for players, like meals.
Yeah,
stuff. Like that's the more interesting. Like, is that true? Type of thing, I'd say, because also you have to think about for the healthcare thing at least. Like people are like, well, is it Canadian healthcare free? But it's like, well, he's American, he's not Canadian, so he doesn't get Canadian healthcare right away. Like they have to I'm sure they have to figure out a way to like get him set up and stuff like that. Like I don't really know what's going on.
Exactly. Do you know this? Is healthcare still required as a part of? Because when I was a player in 2018, 2019, it was a requirement, but I don't know if it is for a coach or if it is still required for players.
I mean, I was under the impression that healthcare was barely even a requirement in 2018 because I remember I remember there were definitely teams in 2018 that did not offer benefits.
What about 401k? Yeah. Do you think the players have 401k still?
See, that was actually the nice thing. I will say, as a Boston player, that was one of the few benefits of being a Boston player was that since it was a real company first, the Craft Group, we had like an employee portal.
You need to be American to have a 401k and like that kind of shit.
We had like retirement plans and healthcare and stuff. So like the Boston Uprising legitimately did in 2018, which I'm sure they still do now because they were a real company first, offered like a lot of like actual benefits that I don't think many other places did. Like even like working for orgs post Overwatch League, many orgs still don't have. Like Misfits is great, they do, and then like MD also had, but like plenty of stuff from orgs where they don't even have benefits still.
Was that why Striker went back to Boston this year for the retirement plan?
For the Warlord, okay. But I mean, you know, we'll see. But I personally, I think the No Hill stuff will at least have video. We have photo evidence of like there are 5 people in this room sleeping. And I could believe it. You know, I could totally believe it for the Valiant stuff. Now, DPEI, I'm gonna say maybe take it with a grain of salt. Some of the claims that were done there.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, it absolutely sucks to see some of these issues go on. And you can't really justify them. It just completely sucks. It just sucks. Like it does. Like the No Hill LA Valiant situation. Like what more is there to say about it than it's suboptimal. You know, it's been very apparent that LA Valiant have been reluctant to spend money and invest money into that franchise now for a couple of years. And
that's a collapse, by the way. When we talk about like when that justice conversation earlier of like we need teams to equalize their spending, that's what a collapse looked like. It's 5 players in a room all using that same bed then to like eat off of and take meetings. Like this is a collapse. This is when the franchise has no support. You sell it to like literally anyone that will take it. Type of thing. Like, because remember, technically Immortals owns a slot, but they don't operate this. This is operated by a company in China. I believe it's LGE. So, like, this is not operated by Immortals. People are like, I can't believe Immortals will do this. Guys, I hate to break it to you, Immortals has literally nothing to do with what's going on right now because LGE is running the slot. So, just...
And then I don't know, like the question becomes is like, where does the accountability lie? Like obviously less a case for the DPEI problem, but more case for the situation that the Valiant players are going through. There's been so many rumors that have come out from this LA Valiant squad of they are intentionally breaking the league rules and stuff like that. Of like, you know, players are required to get paid minimum 50K. You know, there needs to be like housing provided and shit like that. That doesn't count as housing, right? Like, and it feels like there is a lot of things being bent and nothing is really getting done about it. I don't know how the league can come in and sort of like step in and deal with these kind of situations, but you know, it all routes back to the same thing that we were talking about with the Washington Justice. There needs to be a compromise, and there needs to be some adjusting of the league, because this shit's just going to keep happening if we just assume that people are, not every team can be the San Francisco Shock or the Dallas Fuel, where they're willing to spend and lose money on these Overwatch League teams to compete, because some teams are decided, well, we can also not lose money and not compete and just exist, and that'll be fine. And that's just bad for the league overall.
Yeah, I mean, for Immortals and LG here, I mean, it's like, I don't know how Immortals operate in the other esports, but they're not like a top tier organization, like some of these other organizations that have franchises, right, and are like trying to maintain a good image, PR, stuff like that. Like if Dallas Fuel did something like this, like that would just cause like a massive like PR downfall, ripple effect onto their other ventures, whether it's CS:GO, Valorant, League of Legends, whatever, because they're actually like a professional top tier organization. I guess Cloud9 would be the exception, but Lolo Spitfire still, while they're not like spending the most money in the league, like they have a respectable franchise, and like they have a coaching structure, and they're trying to like nurture some of these contenders players, and they ran like the British Hurricane, like stuff like that, right? So they're still respectable in that regard. But like Immortals, like Vancouver Titans, I don't think they're like I don't care too much about like their what people perceive of them, and their spending efforts. It's more to them like, do we believe in the long-term viability of Overwatch League and like the financials, and like, is this a space we want to invest in right now? My hope is just like with the Overwatch 2 and a great content plan, maybe like a return to user growth for the game, maybe Overwatch League flourishes at least, or not flourish, but like improves like the viewership and stuff like that. We get maybe some sponsors back in a year or so. Like when that stuff improves, maybe there will be some kind of one thing leads to another, and some of these franchises again will be open to spending a bit more money and investing in their infrastructure and stuff like that. But that's about what you can hope for, right?
When does the league have to like, I don't know if this is even possible, but like, when does the league realize that like what we're currently like, how do we deal with the LA Valiant situation? Because like going into next year, what's going to change? Like nothing's going to change if the LA Valiant, like I feel like there needs to just be some form of adjustment, or like teams willing to sell their teams to other people. There needs to be some form of like, I don't know, but as I said, I don't do this shit. All I can say is that from someone who is a fan of the league and works in the league, it's just really shitty having these teams exist, and there doesn't feel like there's an exit strategy or an entry strategy.
I mean, it's tough, because it's why like a model like Valorant's partnership model is more valuable, because you don't take, since the league has received buy-ins, which by the way, the majority of those buy-ins haven't been collected, which was the report, so like technically they've received buy-ins, but not actually received buy-ins. Like they've received some money, but not all the money. But like, since they've received buy-ins, the league, the teams that are part of the franchise league have a lot of power here, right? Because like, especially in a situation where like we aren't dealing with valuable commodities, right? Like currently an Overwatch League team like is not a valuable commodity to most people. Like if you have a franchise slot, like who's gonna buy it? Tell me, like there's very few people that are currently looking to buy Overwatch League teams, right? So that's the problem that we're locked into, is that like, if you're looking to sell a slot, who's going to take it? So let's say the league's like, Valiant, you've committed too many crimes. You have to sell your slot. Who buys it? Like that's the issue, right? No one's going to take it. Like if you tell them like, okay, you can take this slot for free, then people might take your Overwatch League roster. But what org is going to get rid of their slot for free without like money in transit like taking place there, right? And that's the issue that is happening with the buy-in league when there's not a lot of interest, versus a partnership model where you can kick people out willy-nilly because they don't pay you money. You give them money, right? Like they're giving the privilege to work with you, and you can kick them out whenever you want, versus like they are paying you to participate. So they have a vested interest, and you have to help give them their money back, essentially help them earn. Like they have they've already given you a significant monetary transaction. So like, I don't know. I personally don't know the easy answer to what to do when you have teams that might be fundamentally abusing like their things. Like at some point there has to be a time where you have to like put your foot down and be like, you can't do this, we're gonna fine you, etc., etc. But it is a very uneven distribution of power between the league and the teams right now, currently, because it's just they're kind of, I mean, like what do you threaten them with? Like what do you do? Like there's no one lined up to take it unless they have the option to somehow strip them of their roster and their spot and give it to someone else for free. Like I don't know what, outside of like severe legal repercussions, I don't really know what is the answer to like solving that.
Yeah, and now wouldn't be the time either, right? With Overwatch 2 on the horizon, and like, I think it's honestly, it sounds stupid, but I think to some degree, like a lot of these teams and franchises, they're just like waiting for us to get to Overwatch 2, and they're like waiting.
Oh,
for
100%.
Us. Yeah, they're just
Do you
waiting
think
for
the
us to get
Valiant-
to like the next phase of like the Overwatch League.
Do you think the Valiant changed? Like, do you think next season the Valiant is going to be like, okay, enough of this LGE stuff. Let's field a good roster, or do you think that?
No. I'm not saying that. I can't. Like, who knows for sure? Like, I have no fucking idea what the LA Valiant are going to do next year. But that market that Avast was talking about, like maybe someone wants to step in. Let's say like Overwatch 2. Decent success. Let's just imagine, and like maybe this sounds off the goop. I don't know. Let's imagine like we start off next season and like stage 1, stage 2, 100K viewers. For like the regular season, that it's a good number, fresh game, and maybe some of that hopium starts to trickle back, that we're at least like sustainable and we're a good spot. Maybe some sponsors came in, like 1 or 2. I'm not asking for too much here. It's a brand new fucking game, and like I know we're currently playing on it, but like players or people would actually be able to play the game where we're playing ourselves in the Overwatch League, content, all that stuff, and maybe someone outside from the league would be like, hey, I'm actually like, at what we consider a reasonable price, we would actually be, interested in stuff like a spot like this. And that's where some of that repercussions that Avast was talking about comes into action. So this is all speculation. I have no fucking idea what we're talking about, but it's an interesting conversation nonetheless, right?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks too, right? Where we, at the start of the year, actually, I can't remember the exact date at all, but the whole like Bobby Kotick thing and a lot of the sponsors kind of taking a step back, and it's another kind of, oh well, the league takes a fucking L here because the sponsors are backing off because of the Bobby Kotick thing, although it was happening throughout the industry, and rightfully so, right? I mean, a lot of these cases were coming out over the last year and a half, I'd say, which is fantastic for the people that actually got to speak out on the matter. And I'm glad it happened. It sucks that the league lost a lot of sponsors, and I hope it kind of, I hope the league has kind of repaired that blemish that it had at the start of the year, and when and hopefully the sponsors do come back. But like, being a brand new product, I can imagine there's going to be a lot more eyes on it, since it is going free to play. So if there's any time for sponsors to come in, it technically would be next year, because the game's popularity, I'm not saying it's going to fucking quadruple overnight, but I said it last time, I think we're on the podcast, but look at Fall Guys, the way that kind of fucking slapped. Jesus Christ. Went free to play on Epic and then just popped off like this in orders of magnitude. Like, it's insane.
A lot of people play Overwatch, and I think when it goes free to play, it will be very successful again. Yeah,
not like we can talk about the fucking numbers, but like there's a lot of people that fucking play Overwatch. There's a lot of fucking people that play, and it's actually kind of insane. And I've like had whispers and like shit like that of it compared to other games that are currently out right now, and I'm like, damn, things that you wouldn't quite expect. You're like, holy shit, okay, like there's still a big player base, and when that goes free to play, I'm like, okay, let's go. And
there are a lot of people who have like a passive vested interest in Overwatch. Like, for example, like when the beta initially, like the first beta went live, I had a lot of like non-Overwatch friends or people who just like casually talked about the Overwatch beta and like, hey, this is cool, like here's who actually watched the BP, the Bad Pachamari video of the first beta compilation thing, and we're like, hey, this is cool, and like checked it out. So they're just like waiting, and then it goes free to play, and they're going to try it out, and hopefully if the game is good, there's good systems to play, good matchmaking, stuff like that, that can mean like that they are more inclined to jump on Overwatch at the end of like a Tuesday work day, and they're like, hey, I'm gonna jump on Overwatch with my friends, the console community. Like there are a lot of people who are aware of Overwatch. It's one of the most successful games when it comes to like the universe, and like people are being aware about it. I think there was some survey or something like that.
Scott has a good stat on that. Like, what was the percentage of people that recognize Overwatch?
There was
they're very recognizable. Exactly,
it was something like in the FPS genre, if you like, they were doing surveys, and it was like 97 or 98% of people who play FPS knew what Overwatch was in comparison to your other games. And like number one was like Fortnite, and the second one was Overwatch. So like, it's one of the most brand recognizable FPS games. Remember, we were in the glory days in 2016. We could do no wrong. Like, the game was just so much fun. There was so much hype around it. if Overwatch 2 can even tap into a portion of that again and bring a lot of people back, like, I don't know, I assume you guys are the same way. I have tons of friends in esports, tons of friends in video games that are now in different games. And every single time I talk to one of them, they're like, dude, 2016, I played the shit out of that game. I played it till 2017, and then something happened, a bad patch or just another game came out, and then they forgot about it, they stopped playing, and there was no reason or incentive to bring them back. Be like, hey, you should play again. Overwatch 2 is that reason. And I think my optimism for the league comes from the Microsoft acquisition for next year, with Bobby Kotick hopefully leaving, the Microsoft acquisition hopefully going through. Obviously, that's not going to have adverse effects on the league anytime soon, but hopefully it should bring back sponsors, and hopefully it should incite change in the future.
Always the trickle-down effect, right? Like that giant player base, well, hopefully, you know, bigger player base than what it is now, and then eventually people start trickling down through like the esports. We already have like, it's not the biggest icon in the fucking world in the game, but it still says Overwatch Esports or Overwatch League in the fucking main menu. They're not going to go ahead and fucking hide that, or if they do, please don't fucking hide that shit. Just leave it on the fucking main menu. And, you know, when the games are on, it's kind of nice. Because remember, when the fuck did they actually even add that? Like the whole like Overwatch League thing, and then it says live when the games are actually live. Like that is quite a big thing.
A couple of years ago.
It was a couple of years ago. It definitely wasn't when the league came out, right? I'm pretty sure.
No, the skins came out, and there was like the Overwatch League.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that little bit of integration. And from what we've experienced thus far, the devs are way more willing to kind of put a little bit more time into the esportsy side of things of the Overwatch ecosystem, which is great. I mean, it's quite obvious, right? I mean, we playing on the game that's not even fucking out yet, and the devs are very much willing to take feedback from pro players and creators and shit like that too. And yeah, I want to be as optimistic as possible, because otherwise I'll just be perma doomer. You know what I mean? Like, you know, doom scrolling Twitter and social media all the time. And I think it's better to be in that kind of mind state anyway.
I think we'll have a way better idea of like where we stand and like the prospects are in like an exact year from now, you know?
Yeah.
Because then we'll have, you know, hopefully a season of Overwatch League under our belt. I don't know what's going on with BlizzCon, but you know,
they did announce that it's coming back 2023, or at least it's in the books, right? Mike Ibarra said 2023 BlizzCon is being planned.
Please.
Yeah, like
Overwatch World Cup. Please bring it back, because it's so hype. People love that shit.
So many people for it, right? Like, it doesn't have to be what they did in the past, where we had fucking 3 or 4 city qualifiers. Just have an international global tournament at BlizzCon, bring a bunch of people, have world recognition, and it would, just do that again, and that'd be great.
Yeah. So
okay,
sort of grounding ourselves from the hopium. Sorry, Avast.
I just need to make a disclaimer here. I know everyone on Reddit's gonna hate that 20-minute segment that just happened there, because it was pure unadulterated cope and hope. So like, I was not a part of that segment. Okay,
so
when you direct all the Redditor hate, because everyone loves to just circle jerk each other about how smart they are about everything all the time and how much whatever, like, because like I like to be optimistic and everything, but like don't like listen. I wasn't part of the cope and hopium segment. Like, I'm still, you know, I'm baseline doomer. I'm baseline doomer waiting to see. We could have summed this all up as like, this year doesn't, which is what I said the last episode. This year doesn't fucking matter. Overwatch 2 matters. Everything's out of our hands. Who fucking knows? Maybe it's for the best if the league dies, because then we can go to a baseline equilibrium of sustainability, right? The league doesn't have to exist for Overwatch Esports to exist. You know, those are 2 different things. So like, so this was mostly me just saying, because I know there's going to be literally like 80 Redditors
who cares what they think? Who gives a fuck about those people have asked? Like, if you guys want to be a doomer on social media, go fucking be a doomer. Just fuck off.
It's not about that. Like, it's that we also need to have, we just need to have 2 balanced takes here, which is like, I don't think we don't have to assume that the league has to survive and exist for Overwatch Esports to exist. And it could be a necessarily good thing, or like if things fundamentally change. But at the end of the day, it's not even doomer. I just totally believe this. Like, Overwatch 2, everything that we do, the league do, is out of our hands. Sure, there's a ton of stupid people that are like, wow, I can't believe the league would allow all this to happen. It's that the league is choosing for the game to have lack of interest. Like the league has no impact onto like the popularity of the game of Overwatch. The fact that Overwatch has that impact. You know, what Team 4 does, what Blizzard does, has that impact. So it's just me delineating those 2 points. But once again, I am cautiously optimistic that we'll return to some better point for next year. I think hopefully teams are realigning their expectations. I think Overwatch 2 is going to be good. Hopefully BlizzCon comes back. If we get a World Cup, I'll pog out of my gourd. World Cup is like the best event.
I'm not even trying to be like overly optimistic, and I'm not trying to be too ambitious, and I'm not trying to like, you know, like
It's
actually
fair.
like
All
manifest these streams. But I'm saying like what started this whole conversation was that I made the argument that like that is sort of what the owners of these franchises are hoping for too. Like they don't want to just like be part of these franchises that to some of them they're not willing to spend money, they're not willing to invest in the franchises. Obviously they don't want that. They want Overwatch to flourish, they want the league to do good, and then maybe they'll be inclined to spend money. So that is, you know, what we're all hoping for. That's what the fans are hoping for. That's what we are here on Plat Chat are hoping for. That's what the players are hoping for.
Normally people that have the money on the line and are involved with the league, like us, for example, care a little bit more because like livelihoods and like, you know, earning a living wage is quite important to a lot of us. So, you know, there's a lot of people that care out there, and I can appreciate that.
Let me take a bite out of that apple first, because there is, with all this bullshit going on right now, and I know it's, you know, people call it the Mickey Mouse season. People call it the Mickey Mouse season because, you know, it is, you know, it's Overwatch 2. The viewers can't play the game. You know, this Junkie Queen meta, like
the players literally can't practice the game.
Players can't practice the game.
They can't play ranked.
Like, you know, it's all over the place. So I understand. Like it's not been the season we were hoping for and the season we were envisioning when we were like promised that we're gonna play on Overwatch 2. I know there's a lot of issues going on, but there's just started to be like, you know, what's it called? Like the underbog kind of rumor here. What's it called? There's just people, you know, they're starting to try to make this case that like maybe Overwatch Esports would be better without the Overwatch League. And I'm not ready to have this full-on fucking conversation right now. But before you start wishing for shit like that, keep in mind what we actually have and what that allows and how the infrastructure we have, how many players are actually like allowed to make a salary because of that, like the money circulating within our esports system because of the Overwatch League. So that is like a whole fucking 1 to 2 hour conversation that I'm not willing to dive into. But be careful what you wish for. Fucking thank you, Kurt. Be careful what you wish for, that like before you start just like wanting to tear everything down. Okay, it's not, we don't want to become fucking Woodstock of esports over here. All right, like let's slow it down a little bit. So I don't know, maybe I'm the only one feeling that way, and all three of you guys are just
no,
like,
I'm not. No one is saying
down.
that. I simply was just putting a more balanced perspective of like, you know, there could be benefits and positives. There's a lot of stuff going on that's like, and I still have the optimistic hope. It's just like I just wanted to balance out a little bit because it was, to be honest, we weren't really moderating the amount of cope that was going out for about like 15
we were not
minutes.
moderating.
No,
No,
we weren't moderating.
We did talk Doomium for the first like 30 minutes of the show. I thought we were trying to counterbalance ourselves, because if people would listen to Plat Chat at that point, they'd be like, man, this shit sucks. But like the whole point of it is that there's optimizing. And like, I agree with you, Avast. A part of me, in my heart of heart, wants the league to just, I hope this is the last year of Overwatch League and then everything fails and then we go back to a grassroots thing. I completely agree with Johnny that we take what we have for granted of players are getting paid less than 50K. There is a lot of teams that are successful and we get to do a lot of things. But a part of me wishes that we could start again and start anew where we don't have all the guardrails that we have right now that is locking us into some of this terrible situation.
And also conversely, if the league doesn't exist right now, do you think like the thing that Johnny said, like, we would not have rosters at all, probably, like right now. Like everyone would have dropped their teams. Like
would fucking invest in us right now if it weren't for the Overwatch League teams already being invested.
There are positives. Once again, this was not supposed to be like an extended conversation. I was just saying like there are some benefits we can retextualize. I think next year there's going to be some optimistic indicators, but this year is a shit show. We should not pretend it's not a shit show. We should all admit that it's a Mickey Mouse year, but we can still have fun watching it. Right, we can still have fun and have some cautiously optimistic for the future, you know.
And some of the Mickey Mouse, you know, stuff, it doesn't, you know, justify that being okay. So, for example, like another thing that's been pointed out, I think Yiska has been tweeting about this stuff. Is like the 30-day contracts, and you can eventually just like roll the 30-day contracts, and in that way you're not guaranteeing like the 50K that was promised. Like you're sort of like skirting around the rules, and you know, that's a little bit of Doomium too, but he's like at some point it will turn into like you only sign like meta relevant players to 30-day contracts, and then you just like drop an ad based on like what the current meta is and stuff like that. So there are just like stuff like that, and other stuff like housing, for example, and making sure that franchises are pulling their part and they're not like skirting around the rules, stuff like that. You can still take this season to figure that stuff out and like put stuff in place and improving, like upgrading the fucking building to make sure that if Overwatch 2 turns out to be successful, and if next season turns out that we're in a good spot, we have content, people are interested, PvE gets people going, then we have the infrastructure in place, and we've learned from our mistake to a point where we can even like be better off because of that, and we don't have to deal with that now. So despite of this season and what you might think of it, and all the good things and the bad things, bit one-sided, but there are still like lessons to be learned from this season that hopefully will be better off next year anyway. So holy fuck.
Go to the next
I think
topic,
that's that. I think that's that.
topic.
Yeah.
I think it was good.
All right.
Good derailing.
That was a good 1 hour segment.
We needed to get it off our chest.
We needed to get it off our chest. I think everyone in the Overwatch community needs to get it off their chest. Let's jump over to the New York Excelsior. All right, let's laugh at ourselves a little bit here. The New York Excelsior, the day after last episodes, last Wednesday, they signed a main support finally. We ranked them 20th in our power rankings on Tuesday. Wednesday, they signed a main support. Thursday, they reverse sweep the Houston Outlaws. What a fucking turnaround for the New York Excelsior franchise. Well, I mean, fuck, we got to deal with the Myeongbong stuff now, don't we? But
Yeah, we got to touch on it at least.
Yeah.
Bring up the emote. Bring up the "We won" emote, please.
We won.
We won.
We won. We won. We did it, guys. I mean, we didn't talk about, but the Myeongbong stuff in hindsight, when we think about all the other things, was really a minor blemish of all the other horribleness that's happened.
Well, he
Really
did
minor...
get dropped through Twitter. Like that is the real horrible thing. The graphic doesn't matter, but like.
But the thing is, I'm saying more on the cosmic scale, right? Like it's one thing if one person loses their job in a horrible way versus like, oh yeah, like by the way, the league's folding. So like I'm just saying like the scales are different, right? But yes, it is. I'm here. We're gonna drop a couple things. We're gonna drop a couple things today on this because as someone that works very directly with multiple orgs now, I have a great insider's perspective on stuff like happens, and I'm going to also rage at online people. So first of all, this is just my cope because, and also people keep on saying I work for Mayhem. By the way, I don't work for Mayhem. I've literally done almost negligible work with Mayhem. Just gonna put that out there. Secondly, Adam's drop was not like this. Adam was informed ahead of time that he was being cut via call before the announcement. It's just, unfortunately, the Mayhem chose a bad strategy and did not give him his separate announcement post. They included in a series of posts. That is not equivalent to not knowing you were getting cut, then finding out you were getting cut via Twitter. Two separate issues there. Secondly, I think there was a lot of hate that was quickly corrected towards the New York social team for this when it's clearly wasn't their fault. They were told to make a post. However, the victory graphic with Myeongbong
is very funny.
That's definitely on them.
Was it an actual thing?
That's literally the "We
real.
won" emote on my channel. It's Myeongbong as the victory graphic. Like it's the "We won" emote. Like
we won.
Holy fuck.
That's a little bit more of like, okay, maybe there should have been some oversight into what the victory graphic was, because part of someone that's worked in that side and like seeing people working with it, it's you do want to make sure like, okay, what deliverables are going out from players that have been cut, right? So like I will say there's some warranted criticism in that for the social team, but to be fair, they got a ton of unmitigated hate for no reason for the initial post, which was by far the worst deal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't their fault. So from the environment perspective, like I think there was one thing that wasn't their fault and one thing that was far more minor that kind of could have had some more oversight that they probably had a lot more direct control over. But overall, holy fuck, this was bad. I can't believe it. Oh, yeah, the other third thing too, actually, I want to add, as someone that sees social teams and marketing teams work and has been a part of them, people were saying it was uncalled for that a social team would ever know a player is getting dropped before a player. But no one's considered the fact that, like, what happens if they have, like, a bunch of videos they film with the player that go out after they release them, right? Like, there's all these deliverables, things you make for sponsors that get filmed that could include this player. There's all sorts of stuff that, like, posts. Like, there's all sorts of graphics, merch things, shoots that could include this player. So you have to let the relevant...
definitely a template. That fucking "We won" graphic is definitely just a template. Like...
Yeah, exactly. It was. But that's something where you check. That was the only bit of criticism there is that you check the template, right? But... the point being is that social teams sometimes have to know ahead of player time just because you have other stuff going out from your org that you've already pre-made. you've pre-constructed that are scheduled to go out. They've been scheduled to already go out. It's not a human being saying like, oh, hit post. It's like they've done a scheduled tweet. The tweet is going to release. Like, so you have to let them know ahead of time that like, oh, wait, by the way, stop this, right? The issue there is not the social team knowing ahead of time. The issue is that it was not communicated to the player in a timely manner before they learned via tweet. That's the issue. The whole issue here was that Myungbong did not know he was getting dropped. It was not who got informed before him. It was not everything else. Is that Myungbong did not know he was getting dropped before the tweet was made. So that's the problem there. And that's also a failure from their comp ops team. There's no way your GM and coach were not like, there has to be some sort of failure from what's going on from like Gesture and Nugget on that department, like 1,000,000%.
It's most almost certainly on like the GM or the person who is handling those kind of things, because the social person isn't the one being like, let me go talk to Myungbong or anything like that. They are literally just told from above them, this is happening, this graphic needs to run on this date, and they just fucking hit that. They schedule it, as Avast says, and it goes. Like, if the player is not told during that time, it is in no means relevant to the social media manager. They're just doing their job. As Avast said, though, that the graphic, they need to do their own due diligence and make sure that they adjust
Probably
that
should have
shit.
double checked that. It's a very easy mistake to make, though, right? It's a very easy mistake to make. People want to be like, they want to act like they've never made mistakes before. People do, but that's something that was actually more in their control. The other player announced with Myungbong was not really. That was like someone fucked up. That wasn't them. So
yeah, it kind of sucks as well, because we just had like a theoretical conversation like in a group chat or something this past week, and like talking about like some of the good GMs around the league, and like I would have been prepared to state like Nugget has like, say what you want about New York Excelsior like the past couple of years, but like he's made some sensible moves, and like he's done like, even if New York Excelsior is disappointed this year, like I could see that then, we're gonna pick up Yaki and like Flora, and like, oh, we're building out a team here, and like it hasn't been the season so far, but like, I still kind of like respect him, and then this kind of stuff happens and it's unfortunate, whatever. It doesn't, it's not this kind of issue with Myungbong. It's not correlated to like the roster decisions and actually like picking up head coaches and stuff like that. But it just kind of sucks for New York Excelsior staff in that regard that this kind of happened. So a bit of a blemish. Do we want to talk about Ansonjay and his debut in the Overwatch League and what this means for New York Excelsior?
I just want to ask, why do you think Nugget has stood out to you as a good GM, like someone you respect? Because I know New York fans are about to come down upon you, Jonathan, for that take.
Really?
Yes, they hate Nugget. I'm not kidding. I'm literally not kidding. They hate Nugget.
Oh,
so
wow.
I want you to justify your position for a second.
Oh, wow.
Well, obviously, I mean, they had the good first couple of seasons, right? I don't know exactly how much Nugget was
Bare Hands assembled. Bare Hands assembled that roster.
True. I mean, what was it? Wasn't it like LW Blue? They just picked up.
Yeah, he just picked up a good team from Korea. Yeah,
picked up a good team.
Pretty good.
But still, like the 2020 season, like they were moderately successful in like 2020. They weren't the best team in APAC. Obviously, like that was the Shanghai Dragons. They got third, and they didn't end up making the playoffs. But like they got third, like behind Seoul Dynasty and Shanghai Dragons, for 2 slots going to like the top 4. And so they made the addition of like Huxal to that team, and like they brought in some interesting candidates. Then they rebuild, and like say what you want about the rebuild, no, they didn't have the greatest results in 2021. But still, like 2022, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna have one good part of our team was like Flora, and we're gonna build around him. We'll bring in Yaki. At the start of the season, everyone actually talked about Kellan as one of the better like tank pickups going into the season. So it's unfortunate that like Kellan didn't, hasn't really worked out this year for this team. But going into the season, like he was pretty hyped up. People were like, this is a good pickup for this team. And so the only complaint we really had about New York Excelsior going into the year was like the main support kind of situation with Gangnam Jin. And also they had that thing where like Kellan had to go back to Korea like 2 weeks started the season or something like that, and they had to bring in Volkan. It was a bit of a mess. But like I don't for the New York Excelsior, like obviously they're not at that stage where like fans are like, oh, we're doing great, I fucking love my team, we're doing great. But like you have to evaluate like general managers' decisions based on at the time they did it and what the money they had available and like their situation and everything with that. And I think in general, like New York Excelsior, even though they're not as successful right now as they were in 2018, 2019, they made some decisions I can understand that has led to results they didn't necessarily want, but they still made some like understandable decisions, and I think that's better than making fucking dumb decisions.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I
just
want you to clarify because I just want people are going to be mad.
You can be a good GM and make respectable decisions and not be successful. It happens. All right. Yeah. It happens. Okay.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to clarify that. I think that's completely valid. I think that's a completely valid point. Yeah. And now on to Jay. I'm gonna rant again. People were shitting on me because they were like, I can't believe you didn't rate New York. But I was like, we rated New York. People were shitting on us, being like, why were they so low on New York? As if this was filmed when we knew they had on Jay, and they would take like sometimes I just can't, like, being a public figure, like we've talked about it before, we're like, you just got to get over it. But sometimes the takes are so papige that I just don't understand.
You gotta stop reading Reddit, Avast, man. It
wasn't just Reddit. I was
on Twitter, and people are gonna come into your chat. I got Dallas fans coming into everything, but I can't believe they disrespected Dallas going into this stage.
He hosts the co-stream. He hosts the co-stream where all the Reddit people go to hang out during all the matchups, and he has to like nurture them like they're
No. My co-stream is I would say it's much more reasonable on average. The people that are my fans, honestly. And there's a lot of just like people spamming come and like we won. Yeah. Like it's like my chat is like. My chat is like very fun. Like the people who watch my stream, the co-stream, and like my other variety streams and stuff, like they're all super chill. It's mostly
holy fuck, what an episode this is.
That want to be just mad. They just want to be mad all the time and feel superior. And I'm like, but it doesn't even make sense. You can't even feel superior. We didn't know Ansun Jay was, but okay, enough. But Ansun Jay, I think he's been a great player. I'm really happy with New York's performance. Yaki's a god, and everyone that doubted when I said he was the top like 3 DPS in the league
he is not a top 3 DPS. You shut your mouth right now. No, he fucking wins one game, and all of a sudden he's back to being the best DPS in the world. Are you fucking kidding me? Next weekend he's going to decide that he sucks again. That's how Yaki plays, okay? We have fucking DPS players in this fucking league, and you're going to say Yaki's top 3 DPS?
Yes.
No, 100%. You are off the fucking goop.
I think he is the top 3 flexible DPS. I believe that even when Florida was shitting the bed last year. I think Yaki's incredible. I think Yaki is amazing. There's documented evidence of me supporting Yaki. I'll stand by it.
Oh my god, dude. Wave me. Dude has one good stage a year, and Avast is just forever on the copium.
One good stage a year. That's so false. That's so false.
Yaki has been fucking lights out part of the season on Genji.
Parts of this season, exactly.
He's been trying to deadlift every single map.
And he is. He's a great player, but don't come in here and say top 3 flex DPS when we have some fucking incredible gamers this year.
He's fucking up there.
Yeah, he's okay. If you want to start towing top 5 and start going a little bit out of there.
Yeah, I'll go top 5.
All right.
Okay, well, anything else you want to talk about New York?
Kevster Profit proper? Just top 3 off the top of my head.
I think he compete. I think he's competing with those names. 100%. Yeah.
You can make a case
with
Yaki.
No, I don't want to argue with this anymore. Avast is wrong.
I think he's competing with those names. I think he is.
I'm not going to say he's definitively better. You think Yaki is just as good as Kevster Proper and Profit?
On Flex DPS pick specifically? Yes, on hyperflexing, I think players like Kevster and Profit beat him out because they're hyperflexes. So,
I want to move on because I don't want Avast take to get deconstructed. I wanted to just be out there. I just want
to throw that out there for all the Yaki believers. Listen, we're still out there, Yaki believers. We're still out there.
I just want the Yaki top 3 argument. I want it to be like a balloon that like a kid let go of. Like you just let it go and it just flies up into the air and just leave the balloon be. Like that's your top 3 take for me. Just leave it be. Don't fly around. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the New York Excelsior. I mean, they reverse with the Houston Outlaws. Hopium. They lose 3-1 to the Dallas Fuel, which Dallas Fuel, they look really good in this meta.
Yeah.
But New York Excelsior? Nugget? What was he thinking? They look good.
Yeah, they look
it's
good.
Funny when you get a main support. That's pretty sick.
And you get Gangnam Jin to play flex support, or at least like play the role that he's supposed to play. Like, yeah, it's like literally they just are playing all their players on their best heroes and in their best roles. And just plot twist, they're good at the game. So
it's crazy. It is funny, like looking back. Obviously, hindsight, Henrys and shit, but every team signing double, triple fucking flex support, and then we roll around to a main support meta, or like someone that has to play Lucio.
It's ironic.
Dear fucking lord, like some teams look abysmal without a good Lucio.
Yeah. So they are playing Vancouver Titans this upcoming week. Going to be a great game.
I mean, they fucking win that.
Yeah. Then they play the San Francisco Shock. Oof. But then they have Paris Eternal, Florida Mayhem, Toronto Defiant.
They're gonna make it.
They're going.
Wait, no, they don't play Toronto. Sorry, they play Florida.
Yeah, they're not
Paris,
playing
and
Toronto.
Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's makeable. That's what it is. That's like almost guaranteed 3-3. They can go 4-2.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that. NYXL against Florida, Toronto, Paris, the new Paris, mind you. It's still gonna be close, but they look good enough to compete with those teams.
And big shock, dude. Watch this. They're gonna give them their first loss this season. Watch this.
It's actually going to be crucial come the summer showdown tournament and like getting an extra league point if possible in like the lower bracket or stuff like that contributes to like play-ins to like actually making the playoffs. So I'm not counting New York Excelsior out. Call me crazy. Yaki is a freak. Maybe not top 3, but he's a freak. And they have a main support now.
Also, Kellen looks actually pretty good.
Very good at Junker Queen.
Kellen looks good.
Kellen looks so much better in this meta than he has in the past. So, I mean, some of the promise of Kellen coming out, like, it's just incredible what happens when you just have a team that makes sense. When your team roles just make sense, it's just literally incredible. Also, it kind of gets lucky because you have Yaki in the Genji meta. So, I think there's a bit of luck involved with like we have a hard Genji meta and Yaki gets to play it because let's be honest, there are definitely times New York probably should have lost these matches they played, but Yaki just pulled out some of the most ridiculous carrying that we've seen. So like proper level carrying. Let's be honest. Let's say it.
I'll see you next stage for his next one match that he pops off.
That's right.
I also would just love the idea if Gesture was like a coach behind the New York Excelsior and a sustained GOATS like meta that they just made them succeed. Obviously, it's probably not Gesture. It's probably like Undyne or someone who's like interim head coach or whatever. I just love the idea of Gesture. I want Gesture to succeed. As a coach
this is the literally definition of Gesture success, like path, right? It's like be mediocre to bad most of the stages. Meta goes in your favor. Pop the fuck off.
Yeah.
This is like, this is literally, Gesture's been playing on this. He's been in the lab. You didn't understand this. He's been working with Team 4 for this one.
So yeah, New York Excelsior, they're looking good. And I think we'll predict their match later as well. It's just good to see this franchise at least get a little bit of hopium after last year when we were literally like their 20th. For good reason, by the way. But they turned their season around. Now, going to another clown fiesta, a bit of a clusterfuck. And some players being apparently upset on social media. The Houston Outlaws, they signed 2 new players, Doge and Lep, for this roster. But then they drop Piggy. They drop Piggy as well. And the Houston Outlaws players, they are not happy about this. There were some tweets from Pelican, for example, saying, what was it? Take a break,
like,
and then I'll see you at the end of the season. I'm out soon. Not great if you're a Houston Outlaws fan. Was it a mistake to drop Piggy? I can't believe it. I can't be happy without Piggy. Fuck. GG, Pelican tweets.
Yeah,
that is very sad.
It is sad. Like Piggy hasn't performed that well this year, but he's also just been like overshadowed because they've only played Doomfist. So I don't feel like he's really been given his muscles to flex, and he actually looked pretty good towards the end of the midseason madness, right? Like even on the Winston and stuff, like he was having some good moments. But yeah, I would be worried for the Houston Outlaws, as I feel like it does feel like they're moving much more towards a Western roster. The fact that they signed Doge and Lep as well, like obviously like European, but like, and Pelican being upset about it, Merit being upset about it, all these players speaking out. Like, I know I would be more worried for my spot if I was one of the Korean players on the Houston Outlaws when you have a player like Piggy who just gets kind of pushed out by like at the drop of a hat. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with them. I'm excited for Doge and Lep. Doge played the Junker Queen in their first match. Looked pretty solid. I think Dante is the better option on that hero that we saw from them in the second map. But Lep, I think, had a great performance on the Lucio as well. So I think they'll both be good additions, and it sort of gives them a lot of freedom to play other heroes. Fill in the holes.
Yeah. Filling the holes. I think it's unfortunate for Piggy. This is a situation where like you actually it's tough to win because I think Custa had the right. Piggy was looking better. It's just the reality of the current Overwatch 2 situation is you have to like pick someone and run with them. Dante's had more playtime overall. And to be fair, Dante's just kind of a freak. Like when you're watching him play, he's good. He's really good. Good player. And sometimes you just lose your spot to a DPS player that has like just a slightly more flexibility. And also on top of that, like his playstyle seems to gel a lot better than Piggy's playstyle. I think Piggy had a lot to learn about like how to play the different tempos of the game and like how to be aggressive, like especially like on the main tank positions. While Dante seems to just have a clear understanding of like whichever better they're playing so far. So it's tough though because your roster is clearly cemented around that Pelican went there for Piggy, right? Was like the news. It was like Pelican was like made the choice to go to Houston because Piggy was there. So this is like one of these roster moving things where like you're just there's no winning because Piggy doesn't have a place in this team currently, is not going to get the play time, but one of your players like they just like are such a lovable player that your roster wants to be with them, right? They're essentially called like they're like locker room players, you know? They're like those the locker room type of players, like the players you want to have in your team because they're good for the squad mental. But they're just not like who knows? Is Piggy even happy being perma-benched? Probably not. Like no player generally enjoys being perma-benched. Like sure, it's fun for a time to be like, oh, I'm getting free money, but then you realize like, oh wait, my limbs are atrophying and my career's dying. So like I don't know. It's a tough situation, but Outlaws, I think, probably made the right move. I think it's unfortunate it picked up Doge when it seems like Dante's just might be better and doesn't have to pay on ping either, which is pretty big. And Lep, I think, has always been a very solid main support player. So I'm pretty happy with the direction Outlaws have gone. I think there's a good iteration for this team overall.
Yeah, I want to, on the Piggy note, and like the players being upset about Piggy obviously being dropped by the team. It's like, it sucks. He's like a good friend of yours. But I guess as a former competitor, that's where like I don't completely like understand being, maybe that says more about me than the other guys, but like being that attached to like being on the same team as like one of your great friends. Because the Houston Outlaws, like they're not like an elite team like the San Francisco Shock and the Gladiators, but they're a good team. Like they're a good team this season. They have good players, and it feels like they're always like just like grasping at like the elite kind of position as a team, like being able to compete with some of those better teams because they have the talent. Merit has been looked insane as the season's progressed. Pelican is obviously like a role star kind of player, and Dante, he's been good on the Doomfist, and now he's good on Jungle Queen, and you know, Ears as well. Like this is a good franchise with like good prospects, and so I sort of worry, I suppose, that players like Pelican, and again, like maybe I'm just emotionally like cold, but I'm like I wouldn't be willing to like throw this. I wouldn't be willing to throw this opportunity away as a team because like you wanted to play with a good friend of yours.
If you don't agree with the
decision that way?
If you don't agree, like they probably believe that Piggy is a better player than obviously whatever the Houston Outlaws coaching staff believe it is. If they generally think that like maybe Piggy got the shorthand of the stick, like I know I would be worried if like I respected a player, right? Like I'm on a team, I respect one of my teammates. I think he's a great player, but he's not playing because of XYZ situation. And then all of a sudden they're just like, we're just going to drop him. That would make me more afraid for my own career of like, well, I could get dropped at any moment. They've shown a willingness that all I have to do is have one or two bad stages, or maybe I just like the meta's not good for my role. And then all of a sudden they're not willing to invest in the resources of staying with me, right? Because obviously Piggy did great things for them last year, remember? So it's like, it's kind of like they forgot that moment and just sort of dropped him on a whim.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, as a player, you'll think of it differently. But like thinking as a GM, like you know,
as a GM, it makes sense.
100%, yeah. So
I think that's actually quite an interesting topic, Johnny, that you brought up. You feeling a bit stone cold compared to like, if you look at Korean esports as a whole compared to like the West and how it's traditionally been done, and this is, I think the gap and the kind of the bridge has been made at this point where like team houses and whatnot, but like traditionally in like Korean esports going back even before Overwatch, like team houses were like a massive thing. We're talking like Brood War, like StarCraft, like all the Korean players playing for these specific teams were in team houses, and that's one of the reasons why they were so good at like StarCraft, League of Legends, like way back in the day, because they had this team house environment. So I completely understand Pelican's like attachment in that way to Piggy, like being one of like they're obviously super close friends, like best friends potentially, you know. So I definitely get it. I 100% understand, because this has been historically a thing that's happened in Korean esports for a long time. Whereas like, yeah, you Johnny, maybe obviously in Europe, not so much. Like a team house wasn't really a thing back then, because fucking Europe exists and you play from every single fucking country and it's impossible to get all the players in the same environment, the same team house. So I get it. I do understand. While I can't speak to that firsthand,
I also my last team I got brutally cut, and I was like, I can't believe they did that. Why would they do that? So,
well, there you go. Yeah. Actually,
why would they cut me? I was good.
Well, like,
So,
it's way more like culturally relevant, I think, for Korean players to have that kind of like team house environment. Obviously, Pelican and Piggy weren't in their fucking Brood War like old League of Legends days and shit like that. But I think it's worth keeping in mind and like Pelican's kind of take on this for sure.
yeah, to be clear, I'm not asking Pelican to be like, sorry, you suck.
Obviously, but I'm just giving like a different kind of perspective.
I'm not saying that. Yeah.
It's definitely like I think there's a little bit of a cultural thing in there too, just without the team houses and just how Korean teams end up playing like League and Overwatch as well.
Yeah. All right, we'll see how the Houston Outlaws they develop with Doge and Lep. That's part of their roster, even though Dante's playing some. We wanted to steal some content real quick from the Tactical Crouch guys. Yiska's reporting. Yiska's reporting of this very interesting budget tier list that basically he talked to a bunch of different people around the league who anonymously submitted like answers to like who they think. Like I think they submitted like their own tier list of how they actually thought like the finances around the league were actually distributed in terms of like what teams are spending the most money and which teams are spending the least amount of money, and what does this look like when you put together a list with different tiers. So this is the final list that Yiska reported, the Overwatch League budget tier list 2022. So in the S tier, we have the LA Gladiators, Toronto Defiant, San Francisco Shock, and the Dallas Fuel. In the A tier, we have Atlanta Reign and the Houston Outlaws, sort of like the runner-ups to the elite teams. The B tier, we have Washington Justice. In the C tier, New York Excelsior, Boston Uprising, Vancouver Titans. In the D tier, Florida Mayhem and London Spitfire. And last, by themselves, in E tier, it's the Paris Eternal. So it's kind of funny when you look at these rankings, and it actually also like reflects itself in the standings, funnily enough, for the most part. But there are a few teams that definitely stand out in this list.
Yeah, for me, like the big, like I was actually talking to, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Matt about it. Of like, the league would be a lot more interesting if we knew how much teams spent on their budget, because it would be a big storyline. Because we obviously talk about, you know, the Paris Eternal suck, right? Like they're just not very good. They're that kind of stuff. But if you can relate it, like especially when you consider last year when they went 8-8, it's kind of what the London Spitfire are doing this year. What they're accomplishing with the size of their budget is incredible. And you need to commend that and respect that, because they've built something out of very little. And then you compare that to a team like the Toronto Defiant, who has a very middling team, but they are one of the highest spenders. So you're like, you can talk about, they are essentially underperforming this season, even if they are middling. So it goes back and forth. I think Toronto Defiant I was surprised that they spent that much and that Washington was in the B tier. I would have expected Washington to be closer towards ANS, but Avast sort of hit on that, where their backline doesn't really have a lot of big spenders in there at all.
Yeah, and also it's separated by years. The narrative of Justice being really expensive was started from their first 2 years of competition, and then their budget priorities changed, right? So like the first 2 years, the bucks they were offering were kind of crazy. It was ridiculous the money they were spending, and then they calmed down. They became much more reasonable, but they still have players that have good salaries, like comparatively most of the league, and they have players that are on much more reasonable salaries, you know? So like, and Pre himself has talked about this too on his own streams. It's just the problem is that Pre has like 2 stream followers, so it's like tough to get that information out there, right, at times. So like only like the dedicated Justice heads out there are watching. Like shout out to I think the one I keep on getting is Comrade Hines. I think Comrade Hines, shout out to that person. So overall, I think this is pretty accurate across the board, based on my own perspective. And I think this is
Vancouver Titans would be switched. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, you have more insight than me on that, but yeah, I mean,
so.
that's.
I think this is about accurate. Titans opened up some checkbooks in the offseason, according.
He did, yeah.
So
like, think about the players they acquired in the offseason. Like they were definitely bidding against other people in the offseason for some of these players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good list. I think it's pretty impressive across the board. I think honestly, the crazy thing to me is New York as well. Think about New York if they didn't have like 5 players, they would essentially, if we'd extended the roster to a reasonable amount, because Kuki was like a player, like essentially a player coach was the rumor for them, right? Was like if they had actually had like a reasonable amount of roster, like players on the roster versus essentially 5, and they kept this budget, they probably would be closer to the B tier or maybe even the A tier in terms of like the extended budget. But because they had so few players on the roster, the money was just so concentrated that it was essentially like C tier, I think, because of like they just didn't have that many players they were spending money on. And like their overall organizational spending. So I do think by far the most interesting ones to me still are just like Defiant. I think Defiant is the most interesting one because they're like they're just dropping bags and they just can't win. Like they can do all right, but they just can't win. Like I'm pretty sure Chorong is worth like the entirety of the Paris Eternal.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor as well. Is that Chorong collected a bag for this season? He was one of the most hyped main support rookies coming into the season, so he deserved that bag. But yeah, Toronto has not been able to convert that to like actual wins. They might make their own land though. They're 2-0, baby.
They might make their own land, which I'm like, I remember I was begging in the previous episode, like, please, Toronto Final, please make your own land because you're spending so much money, please. So
they were a king pulse bomb away from maybe losing to Vancouver Titans. So
but then they crushed the Rain. I think they were pretty dominant. It was the Rain.
Yeah.
So
and we'll talk more about the Rain in just a little bit here on the show. Yeah, it's a nice little budget tier list segment. We're gonna take a quick break. And then we'll return and we'll recap week 1 of the Summer Showdown qualification matches. We'll talk a bunch about Jungle Queen. It's going to be great. So stay tuned here on YouTube and Twitch a little bit, and we'll be right back. And someone will talk maybe. I don't know.
I'll be here for a second.
Hello, chat.
Yeah, cool.
I'm eating carrots right now. Love carrots. Thanks for watching the show. It's been a long one. Might be the...
Are they just regular carrots, Kurt? Or like what type of carrots are we talking
baby
about?
Carrots?
Like
baby carrots with hummus.
Oh, I do love baby carrots with hummus.
Quite tasty. That's quite good.
Avast, I had someone tweet at me saying, "I'm sorry, but Yaki 3 greater signs profit."
Let's go.
Yeah, I don't know what you've been fucking distributing in your fucking Twitch co-streams, but this shit is not okay.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, Yaki. Now, I will. To be fair, top 3 in this. I think the top 3 argument was more so for like last year. I don't think it pans out as well this year considering we got proper.
How do you say Yaki's a top 3 flex support when their team like was last in the West? You think he was just that much better than his team?
I think he was always been that much better than his team. Like he's just been a standout player here in New York. He's still having performances that are like, remember, he's fucking owning like the fuel, in this meta. Like he's doing like he's having, and
it's
also
good.
Previously when Florida was like good, he was destroying. Like he's a great player. He's one of those players that looks good on a variety, like across. He looked incredible on terrible rosters, like not terrible rosters in like the bad players, but terrible rosters in terms of how they performed. And he's looked amazing on rosters that are looking good.
You have to agree that he's inconsistent. Like, I agree he has those crazy performances even on bad rosters and stuff like that, but I feel like sometimes he just doesn't show up or he gets punished because he's a dumb, aggressive player, right? Like, he just fucking goes. And sometimes he gets punished and he doesn't pull back.
I agree. I think this year, because of the overall elevation of the flex DPS power, I think, especially with like players like Proper coming into the league, it's hard to put him like in the top 3 anymore, but I would still definitely rate him in the top 5 in terms of his overall mechanics.
Yeah, the thing is like
as a pure flex DPS behind you, because also think into account when you compare to players like Kevster gets extra points not just for performance, but he's also like a hyper flex, right? Yaki's not really a hyper flex.
I just don't think I can do it. Like I've obviously said those 3, but then you could talk about like Pelican. And then you talk about like we now have Alpha Yi and Zest, who I think probably have the same, if not better, Genji mechanics than Yaki and stuff like that. And they're also both very good at Tracer. Then we're not even talking about Fleta. Fleta's fallen off a little bit this season, but like I just think there's
a lot of great players, but I just really do believe in Yaki. I think
you just really. I can name all those players, and you can still tell me you believe in Yaki.
But that's the thing. This year is hard. This year is honestly harder because, like you said, the addition of like Alpha Yi and Proper and stuff and Zest, like there have been a lot of really good players that have entered, but at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of history of Yaki being incredible. Now, I don't know if he'll own the top 3 anymore. To be fair, I don't know if he owns a top 3 spot anymore in the current iteration of the league, but I would definitely fight for him to be in the top 5 considering. So,
Well, my madging is over. 1 second, I'm gonna get some water.
We had a
We just
break.
had
Shout
some fun
out,
talking
shout
about
out Kurt's carrots and hummus. Shout out.
Yep. Shout out to
carrots
the
and hummus.
carrots
It's
and
Shout out.
hummus.
really good. Really, really good.
Dude, what
You
hummus
should
you got?
try. Oh yeah,
I
try the
have-
hummus. Yeah, what's the hummus?
Red pepper.
Well,
Or no, sun-dried
Quite
tomato
delicious.
and basil.
oh, also good. He does it again.
Really good.
Kurt, we're friends again.
Wait, were we not friends at some point?
I forgot to tell you we weren't friends.
Well, it's good to be friends
Yeah.
again.
No.
We all actually had the incident. We all had an incident. We
Yeah,
had a falling
the
out. and now we're
incident.
friends.
Yeah,
The
we.
incident.
No one on the Valorant show's talking to Connor anymore.
Yeah, it's
No.
true.
Wow, that's
Even though I appeared in one of our first episode back, they wouldn't talk to me in between. Like I showed up for pre-production, they wouldn't talk to me afterwards. They would just have a conversation. I'd be sitting there. They wouldn't
That's so
talk, but
sad.
they'd only let
That
me.
is
They'd
so
only farm
sad.
me for content in the episode. That was it.
Just like Johnny on his last team. That is so sad.
Yeah. This is so sad.
Ten's
But-
just got engaged. Big
No, he
news.
didn't. He didn't just get
Oh.
engaged. He's been engaged for 8 months. Kurt, that's misinformation. I gotta
Oh.
read the post.
I didn't read the post. I just saw the picture.
Okay. Yeah, they've been secretly engaged for 8 months because it would have affected his mouse sales. So
Oh. Yeah, that's
so
true.
stupid.
Yeah, that's true.
he didn't want the all the single women that were purchasing Ten's mice. No, he was engaged.
I've never tried
Yeah.
a super light. I kind of want to, but they're wired, right? They're not wireless. I can't
I
live
have
without
a-
a wireless
I
mouse
have an
nowadays.
ultralight pro, I think. It's like the Sunset
No, the-
edition or something. Is it this you're talking
Oh,
about?
is that? Yeah. Those are they? I don't.
Dude,
Okay,
it's so
I don't
small.
Really,
Like my
don't
hands
really
when
get
I
the
use
fat.
this thing, it's
Johnny,
crazy.
I mean,
To be
you
fair,
are
your
like
hands are pretty
8'7".
big.
Yeah, and your
Yeah.
hands are pretty large. Yeah.
I don't even like hold the mouse. I just like push it around with my
Just like
fingers.
Yeah, I don't really. I don't get the super light. Although I've never used one, so maybe I'd pop off more.
I could never go back to a heavier mouse. I could never go back.
Really?
No, I just can't. They feel heavy. It's weird. They're like
I have
100
a-
grams, but I'm like, ugh!
I have a G903. I just can't do without the wireless anymore, man. I just can't do it.
Let's do a mouse review for the next hour.
Mouse review.
Do that.
Hmm.
For our next hour.
I believe that people like this kind of content.
They do.
people-
They do.
people-
I'm a
people
G
just,
Pro user now. I'm a G Pro user. So,
When this breaks, I'm going to a G Pro, the wireless one, the little
G Pro pounds, I will admit. So, 'cause I was stuck in my boomer ways in 2018. I remember I showed up at the Overwatch League, the Boston practice room, and I still had my wired mouse. And I saw a striker pull out like I think it was the G903 maybe, and I was like, wait a minute, like that's the wave.
wait.
Then that's when everyone, I think 2018 was around the era when everyone started adopting it, and I was like, wait, wireless mouse,
Yeah.
like, because I was still afraid. I was afraid of technology. I was in my cave wearing my like saber-tooth loincloth, and I was like, the wired mouse is the only way to go. The input lag, and then the wireless mouse started getting really good.
It's like zero input lag. Yeah.
Yeah.
Technology is good, man. It pops.
do good stuff. Well, what's next, Johnny? Huh?
Do you think DPEI pays for the accessories too for the Micro Titans, or do the players pay for themselves?
I'm not sure. I'm
All
not
right.
sure. Good question.
Anyway, let's get to some gameplay related stuff. And I purposely let that conversation go on because I wanted Custa to return. Because Custa, he is one of the most vocal,
Fucking
passionate, emotional people about this meta, the spot we're in right now, whether it's good or bad. The JOATS meta! The nerfs didn't matter! Who'd have thought? Here we are, 99% pick rate all weekend long. And, you know, for the AM, they played some double flex support. London played Reinhardt for like one map, and then they played a little bit of Bastion. But 99% pick rate! JOATS! Hooray! What? Yeah.
Who'd have thought giving your team a miniature rally was, or a miniature beat was a cool.
Well, it's better than rally because
And
it's on
better
a
than Pete.
yeah, because it's on
it is a
like a
cooldown,
what
and it gives
11-second
speed.
cooldown, and it gives you speed boost
Yeah,
to
it's
the
11
entire
as well.
team. Like it's just the first time anyone saw the commanding shout, literally everyone was
He
like,
was like, this
this
shit
is a problem.
said it right
busted,
here.
bro.
yeah, like we said it right here. It's like commanding shout is a problem. If you
Yeah.
leave this in, it is going to dominate the meta because it is literally like they learned nothing from Brig, where you're providing instant value of that incentivizes you to play as a 5-man unit. And when you stack that with Lucio and Brig, people talk that like, oh, why don't you play Wrecking Ball? Why don't you play these heroes to deal with it? You cannot get through all the sustainability that the composition has. So they just stay as 5 and you just win the game. As soon as we started playing Watchpoint Gibraltar and Dorado in OWL and people were still playing Junker Queen, that's when you knew it was over. So they need to change Junker Queen in a function that she should not provide overhealth to the rest of her team. My opinions of the buffs is she should shield herself, and she should give healing to people around her. So if they are low, like give everyone 50 health around you or something like that. And the speed boost, if you want to keep that, I think that's a much more reasonable thing. You're not going to buff everyone into fucking existence. And then
I think the healing's too much. Just give yourself overshield or overhealth and then speed, and that is it.
Maybe, like, as I
that
said,
sounds reasonable to me too. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can do that. That's fine with me. Like that might potentially make her like bad, but I think what my fear.
Okay, no, delete the tweet. Go back. No, cut. Get the tweet off the screen. Get it off the screen. Get it off the screen. No one look.
See you in a week, Jack. Jack, we're a week.
Look at your main monitor.
We got him.
It's only 5 days. It hasn't even been a week.
I did fucking text you. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. But no one saw that fucking text.
These things. The issue is, sorry, before I think, the issue is we need a patch between stage 3 and stage 4. This is going to be a shit stage because we're going to get like 4 weeks in. People are going to realize they don't want to watch this anymore. People are already doing this. But this stage is going to be this. Like, they just buckle in. This is going to be our lives. Avril said to me yesterday that apparently in APAC, in the Scrimbucks exchange, they are playing the exact same thing. So it's not even like APAC is going to come in and reinvent the wheel. But there needs to be a patch between stage 3 and 4. But we know there is no beta 3 coming. So it would have to be an exclusive Overwatch League patch that the developers would have to produce while we are so close to a release. So we'll see.
Yeah. For competitive integrity reasons, obviously you can't like patch her now. At the same time, it would be the same for all teams if you just like snap your fingers and like suddenly all 20 teams, like you're playing under new circumstances. We did some small changes to Junker Queen, and maybe that would be the best thing to do. But I've also been told that it's not as easy to just like flip a light switch and just like fucking open Overwatch.exe with Notepad and just like change the value from 100 to 50. Like it's not that easy. Like you can't just in a single hour just like modify the Overwatch League patch and then like implement it and you're all golden. Like that shit takes time. And I don't mean like a day. I don't mean 2 days. I mean like that takes time. And so with this week 1 over, like by the time you'd implement those changes with a new patch that wouldn't have a bunch of new fucking bugs, because that's how video games work, like it at that point would be so far along the stage that there would be no fair way to implement said changes. And it just fuck up the stage even more, in my opinion. So I'm at the point where I'm like, I completely agree with Custa. There has to be a patch between stage 3 and stage 4. And I feel like we're going to get one. I feel like we're going to. I don't see a world in where like I feel like part of like what led to the long duration of Ghosts even was like the developers were like, well, they'll figure it out. Like ultimately, they will figure it out. But from just like vibing around the league, it feels like everyone recognizes that this is a suboptimal meta, and I don't think that anyone wants this. I don't think that, you know, if I have to guess. Clarify, I don't know anything. I don't know any insider information here. I'm not guessing that like the devs are like, oh, this fucking rules. I fucking love this. That we're seeing Junker Queen on every single map and like there's 99%. I don't think they love that. So
well, I think they're at least a little bit happy because the new hero is getting playtime.
The hero's getting playtime. Yeah, sure. From a business standpoint, like maybe the marketing team is like fucking will sell skins, just like throwing them on. Yes, but
for the game that no one can play yet.
Yes, but it you know, for future hero releases, it proves the concept that like buffing. Never mind. Let's move on. Fucking, you threw me off. I don't think people are too thrilled about this either. So I here I come spreading hopium again. I would expect a patch between stage 3 and stage 4. Like I just don't see it. I'm sorry, Custa. I can't join you.
Hear me out. No, hear me out. Okay, no. Here's what I want. Here's my hopium that I hope they go for. I hope that stage 4 is played on the release patch
That's
they
not
are.
happening. It's not happening.
Hey, fucking
It's
give
not
it to me,
happening.
Johnny. Just fucking give me the release patch, okay? Give us the new hero, announce the new hero, and then you tease it with the Overwatch League and all that kind of
You're
shit.
going from this Mickey Mouse season to we'll get the release patch early before all the other players in the world.
Because here's the thing,
because we're the
Overwatch 2
League.
releases in the middle of Stage 4. So what are they going to do? Are we going to play the entirety of Stage 4 without the new hero when they release the new hero in the middle of the fucking season?
Probably.
That sounds
Don't
fucked
design
up. And then if that doesn't happen, then we're going to get a fucking playoff patch with a new hero. And we know that they don't know how to balance a new hero because of where we are right now. So the new support hero is probably going to be able to fucking blink to the other side of the map, kill the entire opposition team while healing your team to full at this point. So, like, I would like them to be able to test it a little bit with the Overwatch League. That's my hopium.
We'll see.
All right.
It's reasonable.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, like honestly, like I think I have a hard time believing they're going to give Overwatch League like the release patch. But at the same time, I'm kind of shocked that we got like the beta for this year. So like
Dude,
I don't
Avast
know,
is done with Overwatch. He's just like, you know what? Anything is I don't believe in anything.
It's gonna be one of the two. And if they end up doing like the Fox Hero girl comes out or whatever, like, and we get that for the playoff stage, you know, I mean, like, okay, like, let's do it. Let's see, like, you know, like,
Hey.
the thing is, it's not Doomium, it's Acceptium. It's just
Acceptium.
Acceptium. It's just, I'm just completely. I
What
don't.
stage
You
are we
can't
in?
be mad. You can't be
You might as well do
mad.
fucking
if you
7
just-
stages of
if you
Overwatch
just
League each season.
accept it, you know, all my hope is transferred to the fall next year. All my hopes transferred to next year. I think, but I will say, I think there actually is a positive spin for this particular meta. I don't think it's as boring to watch as it was in Contenders. I find this meta to be, from what I saw in Contenders, it didn't feel like I ever got to see like very integral or like interesting, like consistent DPS moments. I get to see that a lot more in Overwatch because of the caliber of players. Like the caliber of the players on DPS are so high that it gives
The
me hope
Gladiators
that, like,
Houston match was genuinely entertaining.
yeah,
Because
like-
it's naturally close, but also the gameplay was pretty cool.
And when I'm watching like Fuel New York and I'm watching Yaki get like 4Ks and like just like get
Yeah.
crazy
Oh my
picks,
god,
like,
Yaki again.
But
Yeah.
this is, I'm picking this up. Stop it. People are already coming for me. They're already coming for me for the Yaki thing. I've already walked it back in the breakthrough. Okay, whatever. But the point being is, to me, the meta feels a little bit more fun to watch because in Contenders, just because the level of like, there are still great players in Contenders, obviously, and people from Contenders go to Overwatch League, but the people generally grow. Like they get to Overwatch League, they continue to improve because they're playing better players. But I'm seeing the Overwatch, like the top tier Overwatch League DPS, and it gives me hope that, like, okay, I can still see some cool moments happen. I can see some cool headshots. I can see like Genji players dashing through. Like when I get to watch Spark play soon, maybe I will get to see Alfie and Shy still like pop the fuck off, right? So it's not as bad in some aspects as I thought it was going to be. It is, however, worse in some aspects because on some maps and Contenders they were playing like dive still, like Gibraltar, that has vanished. That does not exist anymore. But also consider this: Florida Bay and playing double flex support. Consider that.
And getting absolutely
Yeah.
dumpstered by the Dallas Fuel.
And
Was it Dallas
consider
Fuel?
that one.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some moments here and there. They had some moments, but yeah, I think overall, like, it has both. It's more positive in some ways and more negative in others.
Yeah,
Just to be
so
honest.
I tweeted that out as well. I was just like, I like this better than Goats because you like Junker Queen is genuinely like a cool hero. Like she swings a fucking axe and she charges in with Rampage and it's
And
cool.
the knives are wicked.
Like it looks
bro.
cool. The,
When you
the
hit a
knife
slick
is
knife
cool
like an
and like
arrow,
pulling people and like shotgunning them, and then you combine them with like Sojourn and like Genji blades. This is more exciting than Goats. And I realized that double AoE healing with like Rally and Sound Barrier and like that's not great. The support situation is not great, but you still have some like mechanical skill damage player moments, which I prefer much more than fucking Reinhardt, Diva, Brig, Lucio, whatever Goats. But I still want it to be over, and I still want the maps to be balanced. You know, I don't want to see this fucking 99% of the time, but I can manage it for a stage at least. I can manage it for a stage. The biggest problem with this meta, in my opinion, as a viewer and as an analyst, that actually like had to break down the gameplay and actually had to like make player assessments and then provide that to the viewer. I can't tell what the fuck is going on half the time and why some teams are beating some other teams and whether some teams or players are outplaying other players. Because so something that I pointed out and noticed during the meta is like there are 4 close range characters in this meta. So not only do you have Junker Queen, like literally in the face of the enemy team, swinging like her axe and like trying to pump shotgun shots into the enemy team, you have a Genji dashing in and literally like sitting like in the face of support players. And then you have a Lucio who's like on the walls right next to the enemy Junker Queen and like booping people. And then you have a Brig who's trying to swing her flame. There is no like long range, wide perspective whatsoever. It's literally just 10 players right next to each other, just bashing their heads in. And there's no way to tell, like, actually, like, the individual skill going on or, like, the ability usage, because it's just a clown fiesta. There's just colors going on. Like, I'm having to track, like, the shouts based on, like, the player health bars at the same time that I'm watching, like, a Genji blade, and I'm trying to assess whether a Junker Queen is good or bad. But, like, I can't. Like, how do you want me to assess whether one Junker Queen is better than the other when I'm just watching, like, a Genji Dragon Blade POV? And then it's like, well, do you want fucking bumper car spectator, which is like free cam and just see like people like bump around into each other? It's the biggest complaint with this meta is that it's just so fucking hard to say why some teams are better than others, whether your team is good, whether this player is good or bad. And it just leads to like a confusing viewer experience that I don't think anyone enjoys.
I will say 2 things. You're right, Johnny. And the 2.5 minute stall for shock on Colosseum when no one died, that shit was the funniest shit I've ever seen. I think, honestly, I'm so glad I casted that fucking game. Because casting a fucking Valorant match within Overwatch, I think Frogger had a good tweet about it. Like, it was just 2 Sojourns looking at each other, just
charging it up for 20
kills,
seconds,
bro.
and then
that was
taking a shot.
Funny as fuck, honestly. I mean, I don't know. It was really funny. I will say, Johnny, on your point, I do agree. Like tracking the shouts is quite a funny thing, because this is from like a play-by-play perspective. Normally it's this is especially true in Overwatch. Oh, here you go. Holy shit, new Valorant update. 2 minutes and 40 seconds of like, dude, it was so funny.
Look at this shit.
My favorite moments of this.
I've never seen this in Overwatch.
No, I've never seen this. This is the first time I've ever seen such a snail bait, yeah.
Yeah, I think it has to have been the longest time without a kill in a game.
Because they're not even charging ults. It's not like they're just charging an Anno, like someone's taking damage to charge the Anno nano.
It's literally just waiting for each other to get a headshot. But my play point was it's sometimes back in Overwatch 1 it was quite easy, right? And in Overwatch 2 it has been recently quite easily, apart from this meta, to tell when someone is going to die, or like tell what team is kind of leading the tempo right now.
Yeah, the momentum is way more obvious.
Yeah, it's way more obvious. And like, I played thousands of fucking hours in Overwatch, right? So it's very easy for me to tell. And that's one of the benefits, I think, for myself. And one of the reasons why I love to just fucking grind the game is because I can tell moments within the game in my play-by-play, like when the tempo is going to shift. It's very different this meta, because if I don't mentally track like 2 Junker Queen shouts and like have like a mental timer in my head of like, okay, when's the next shout going to come up? Are they going to go for a big engage, and kind of set myself up in a team fight to talk about a player and then talk about something else, and like maybe a kill is coming through, but then a shout comes through. I'm like, fuck, okay. And like, you know, you kind of have to take it in a different direction in play-by-play. It's very difficult to tell the tempo of a fight. And I wouldn't say I've been like struggling this meta with play-by-play at all, but it's like, because of the tempo shifts being all over the fucking place, depending on when a shout is going to come up, it's way different from any other meta that I've casted.
Another way to think about it.
That's what I don't like, is you can't tell where the fucking meter is on the tempo scale. It's
another way to think about it, sorry, quickly, Custa. Like in previous metas, you'd have these big central abilities, right? And they're usually like very visually clear, because first of all, like you don't have a team like stacking up. So like a Winston bubble, as someone who's like assessing tank players, I can tell you whether a Winston committing a resource in leaping in and then committing another resource in placing a bubble, whether that bubble was like good or bad for the situation they're in, because of like the map design, because of the momentum, and then maybe they commit an ultimate. Like, it's way more clear to assess whether like something is good or bad, because like you have to pay a cost. If like you fail to capitalize on a Winston bubble, you have to pay a price. Maybe the momentum shifts in the other team's favor. They can punish you. And like you see this fight momentum that we're talking about, Jack. In this meta, like I don't fucking know if like a Junker Queen swinging her axe is going to affect the fight momentum of the team. I don't know if even like a Genji dash is even going to like change things around. And so you have these cooldowns, like ultimates you have to rely on, like Rampage, Rally, Sound Barrier, and those are like your markers whether a team is like has a chance to win or lose. And sometimes it's just like a wash. It's like, yeah, well, they have a rampage and the enemy doesn't have like support ults.
Paired with the speed too, because you can if you misuse the shout, you can use your Lucio just to kind of get away and then reset that tempo. And like, yeah, tracking 2 abilities that give a whole lot of fucking health from a tank role, and like that is sort of used to go in, but it's sort of, yeah, it's fucking weird, bro. I'm hoping they fucking change it. But
I think for me as well is like I agree to Johnny's point of like my big problem with the commanding shout, because that is probably one of the biggest neutral resources that exist. There is no visual indicator really of what's happening unless you're just watching the health bars. So it just feels like you're ending up watching the health bars. It's not like you have a Zarya bubbles.
Just to put that on.
And Zarya bubbles was such an easy visual indicator to look at of this team used their bubble early. Did they get value from it? No. And then you can see that and go back and forth in GOATs. So I think it's just so dependent on the ultimates right now, because the ultimates are really like the big things that you can notice. But it's just so boring to just like look at those ultimates, and teams haven't really perfectly worked it out. On top of that as well, and this happened in one of the matches that we were watching, Johnny, we were watching a New Queen Street. We have Sojins in the game who can also just one-shot somebody. So it's like, we talk about all this micro strategy that exists in this JOATS meta where it's back and forth, ults matter the most, but there's also like a wrench in it where every now and then a Sojin player can just instantly kill a support. And that changes the dynamic completely. And it's also impossible to follow that. Like, it just happens. So it's like, it doesn't feel like one team. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there is good strategy. We talk about how strategy is the most important. It's the zero skill meta, according to Reiner. Like, there is some moments where it's just like, it completely invalidates everything because the Sojin just like one-tapped the Brig who had rally, right? Like, so I think it's just very hard to watch. And I find myself watching the game, I will get 4 minutes into watching a round and I'll be like, I can't tell you who is playing well, who is playing badly. All I can tell you is this is where the objective is, so therefore this team must be doing better. On top of that, stats are completely irrelevant. Like, I've been watching the stats for the entire weekend. Pretty much everyone is going toe-to-toe. Like, in the dive metas of previous, you could tell, oh, this Tracer is diffing this player, or this Sojin is diffing this Sojin. Very rarely is there major differences in them, even if one team is getting rolled.
Really? You're saying that, I mean, but what about Aspire versus Dove?
Dude, I was about to say that stat card should not have been brought up on fucking broadcast.
It was a mistake in how it went through the pipeline. It probably should have been caught by someone, but yeah, there has already been people who have talked about that. Whoops. It has been brought up by players. It has been brought up by teams. It was brought up by the league. Johnny asked for the stat card.
I will take full accountability for this grave mistake, because I recommended in a group chat, I was like, hey, look at this like potential for a stat card here, because fuck, I gotta go into the details now, do I? So basically the stats that Custa were thinking about that we have internal access to, it essentially like totals all of the like stats at the end of the map. So the map was ending and I was like, hey, this comparison between these two hit scan players is like pretty cool. Like, it has a pretty cool difference. Aspire was like popping off, I believe. And then Dove had like a respectable match himself, like a respectable game. His KD was like obviously lower overall. The problem was that, you know, he was obviously playing a lot of Ashe during that map, and then also played some Sojourn. So what happened was, I believe that Dove was on Sojourn when the map ended, and that led to some miscommunication where instead of like the total hit scan comparison that I like wanted to see, it led to just Sojourn when Dove had been primarily on Ashe during the map. And so it was miscommunication. It shouldn't have been up there, but I take full responsibility. It was my bad. It started from me recommending a stat card, and then it went through the pipe and it just got fucked up.
I had to explain on broadcast
the
what
outcome was
2K versus 2K damage looks like.
Yeah, sorry. So if you want to blame anyone, just blame me, all right?
I'm not blaming anyone. I just was memeing.
It was funny. It was
well, apparently
funny.
people got upset for good reasons.
Yeah, there was some teams and players that got upset, because it's like, it does like, that made Dove look really bad. There's some viewers who will watch it and they'll just be like, Dove is the worst player in the league. And it's like, well, that stat card is not indicative.
Well, also,
of anything.
even if that stat card had been true, it wouldn't have changed the fact that his team got so rolled that how do you expect them to even have a decent performance, like, at all? Like, they were just so unbelievably, like, to me, it's like you don't lose either way, because even if that had been true, they got so rolled that how do you expect this DPS player to even have
the comparison? Like, the reason why I recommended the stat card was because it was actually like pretty fascinating. Like Dove had a decent game. He had a decent map. Aspire just had like a fucking amazing map, and it was that difference that was the point to showcase.
Yeah, for sure. But once again, like I was just more hinting on like it's just funny, you know, just funny people sometimes. Joker moment. It's just funny, you know. But so overall, I mean, I also think that for this meta, actually the most interesting part to me, more than anything else, is I find Genji to be really, really interesting in this meta. I found like the usage of Genji dash actually to be probably the most accurate predictor of like how a fight's gonna go is Genji dash. Like if there's someone that like gets split and they get a good dash on them, they probably kill them. If they fuck up their dash, they get isolated and killed. So I don't find the meta. I wouldn't say the meta is watchable, like super watchable. I will say though, if you focus it on the Genji dash, the fights make a lot more sense on average. So I don't know, not the best meta, but I think it's both has more positive than negatives and contenders, and I definitely think this to me is more enjoyable than GOATS. So
yeah. All right, we've been on for fucking ever, so we're gonna have to speed run this recap a little bit because then we're gonna get into predictions as well. We still have a lot of show to go through, and we've been on for like 2 hours. So let's speed run the recaps. I think we're gonna skip a topic or two, but let's get into. I think we should get into the August 14th prediction. Paris Eternal versus Vancouver Titans. We hyped up this date for the longest time, and then Matt came on. He joined the desk as well. We hyped it up. It was a good all fun. And then it turns out that the Paris Eternal players already knew they were getting dropped, and it was a 3-0 kind of showdown, and it wasn't even particularly close. But at least the prediction was right, so we can take pleasure in that worked out. Yeah, Vancouver Titans, good for them.
sure. I mean,
I'm underwhelming. Yeah, I'm happy for them, but yeah, it just felt underwhelming. Like it would have been really cool if it was in a quality meta and that kind of stuff. But yeah, like we went into that match and I think everyone predicted Vancouver. Like it's like it wasn't even like it was a hot take that Vancouver was going to beat Paris, which was kind of sad.
It wasn't a toilet bowl. Like a real toilet bowl has like anything could happen in a real toilet bowl. This was like it was done. It'd been flushed already.
And you saw it like right away. Paris Eternal, like they weren't even competitive, and we were like, oh fuck. Well,
I think Paris Eternal had a better match versus the Justice than they did versus the Titans.
For good reason, probably, given the behind the scenes stuff. So yeah,
it was tough. I mean, I think though, if you're a Vancouver Titans fan, you can walk away and be like, okay, like that's pretty nice. Like, I think this is more of like Vancouver Titans fans should be happy that they look like they have a relatively coherent roster. And like the meta is like not awful for them, especially with like having the ability to still have Aspire do like incredible things. So I mean, Vancouver Titans fans should be cautiously optimistic that maybe they won't be just truly pain for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Vancouver Titans, they look good. And they're another team who are we going into this? Vancouver Titans, they're 1-13, but given how they look, they play New York Excelsior, Washington Justice, Houston Outlaws, Boston Uprising, London Spitfire. Or no, they don't play London Spitfire. Boston Uprising, Houston Outlaws, Washington Justice, New York Excelsior. They could like win four of those. Yeah, they could win all 4. They're competitive in all 4. 3.
I mean,
2.
Houston seems a little. I don't know about Houston.
A little bit.
Yeah, that might be a stretch.
And also New York, even like I'm seeing like 2 of those probably like is winnable.
Go 3 and 3.
Matt guaranteed it on the desk, so it's already a lock. Like I don't even know what we're talking about here.
Still, if they go 3 and 3, 4 and 2 would be like a massive achievement for them. 3 and 3 is still very good and could lead to a play-in spot, given where we are.
Yeah.
Or like not play-in, but a stage playoff spot. I think 3 and 3 is generally the like the cutoff.
Yeah, I think they could do it. I mean, who knows? We've only seen 1 weekend worth of matches, right? So like, Vancouver Titans could be a lot better than we expect. That's so they could be a lot better. I see 2 of those matches is like based off this weekend, they're winnable, but depending on how the rest of the stage goes, like who knows, right? So,
yeah, I think that King impressed me. Aspire as well. They have a good damage duo. They seem like a consistent team overall. So, yeah, happy with Vancouver Titans. Well, we're definitely speedrunning, I guess.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Vancouver Titans, good on you guys. Let's jump into some Doomium, because we haven't talked about that for 30 minutes. The LA Gladiators, they start off 0-2 this stage. not the greatest. You got the Reiner tweet as well, talking about the skillless meta. I think we can all universally agree that, given it's a very chaotic meta, it's not completely like understood and streamlined as other metas, but it's not like luck dependent as much. I wouldn't say that. So the Gladiators still, they start off 0-2, not the greatest performances by them. It was a very close match with the Houston Outlaws. They did lose to the Dallas Fuel, so they're respectable opponents, I feel like. It's not all over for the LA Gladiators, but still, it's 0-2 out of 6 qualification matches. Are we worried?
No. I'm not that worried.
Not really.
Like
People
Dallas
lost
looks to
their
be one of the
mind.
best teams. Yeah, Dallas is like seeming to be one of the best teams in this meta, and Houston, like that match was close, and they just made a bunch of like really bad mistakes in the first couple.
I mean,
of
they
matches.
had that match.
They should have won
that match.
They should have won against Houston. But Houston, give credit to Houston, they had their moments. But Gladiators definitely don't look as dominant as they did in the past. But I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, people lost their mind over like 2 losses to 2 what looks to be 2 great teams in this meta. And even if we were ignoring this meta, Fuel have still been pretty decent so far. Like they've always been like decent so far throughout the year. At parts very good. And then Houston have been consistently like top 5 in North America. And then we had to a meta where they look like they made improvements potentially. Like this is the classic like, oh, my team wins all the time. I've lost 2 tough matches, abandon ship. It's the shock theory. It's the shock theory in full effect, or really any bandwagon theory. Like people just like are so down on the Glads for like after losing 2 incredibly close matches to what looks to be incredible teams when they played Shu on DPS.
Yeah, they got to stop that. That's the number one thing. Stop that.
But Shu on DPS, like that's just crack cocaine. And the rumors are it's because Padpan has a wrist injury and like he talked about it on stream, but they haven't officially said anything by any means. So like who knows what exactly is going on with that, why Shu's playing, but like, so they don't have like, my biggest concern for the Gladiators is mostly their backline, which is shocking to say. It's shocking to say, even though Reiner, I think, didn't have like an amazing Junkering performance, but I think overall, when I watched Skewed and Funny Astro play, it did not feel like the level of coordination I'm used to seeing from the Gladiators backline. It looked like there were points where they were extended. Sometimes they're mistiming ults. Like the peel wasn't perfect either. The positioning wasn't that great. They felt out of sync with like how they wanted to set up their engages. Like to me, because a big part of this is watching this too is like how does like when the fights break down, where do your supports go? Like where's your Brigida looking to get out? And it seemed like Skewed was getting caught a lot. Like Astra wasn't in a position to like feel like obviously Reiner. I think a lot of people are going to highlight Reiner, and I agree. But we were counting on the Gladiators backline to be elite, and they didn't look elite. They looked good. They didn't look elite. So I think Glads though are going to be fine. People are freaking out over 2 close losses, just literally losing their minds over 2 close losses, 2 great teams. I'll wish you on DPS.
So we have talked about the fact that like Sojourn, if that's what you want to call it, probably not that optimal. If this Padipan thing is true, then you're in a spot where you can't really play Sojourn. I would have loved, if the situation allowed for it, I think this team would have just been a better Sojourn team than an Ash team. And that's not taking anything away from Ash. I think like this team though, when they play like up tempo with Sojourn and they like actively look for picks with like railguns, stuff like that, I think that would have catered more to the LA Gladiators that I know, more so than the LA Gladiators who like sit back and positionally try to outplay their opponents and rely on like explosion damage, bomb placement, stuff like that. It did feel when I watched the Houston series that like the players just were like caught off guard and got picked early in fights sometimes because their positioning wasn't perfect. Like Kevster stood out to me once on Hollywood Point A or something like that, where he just like got picked on Genji. And so I'd much rather see like the Gladiators take the fight to the enemy team. And I think Sojourn allows for that in a way that obviously Ash doesn't, because she's a slower hero that way. So it's unfortunate if they can't play Sojourn in that regard. But they're 0-2. They're playing the San Francisco Shock this weekend. So given how the Shock looks, we're probably leaning towards an 0-3 there. And then they're playing Toronto Defiant, Paris Eternal, Atlanta Reign. Like there is so this is sort of like why I'm asking if we should be worried, because the LA Gladiators, there's a chance that they risk like missing the stage playoffs in this meta and circumstances.
I think it depends how Atlanta Reign improve over the next couple of weeks, because they haven't looked crazy. But I mentioned at the very top of the show that I think Atlanta Reign can do very well. It's just taken them maybe a couple of weeks to actually find the groove in the meta and perform to the expectation we kind of had of them coming in.
Yeah.
I think the other matches are fairly winnable, apart from the shock one. So,
I mean,
Winnable
even the
indeed.
shock one's winnable depending on
could
what
be
happens,
close.
right?
Yeah.
Like even the shock one's winnable depending on what happens. Like I think it's like by no means set in stone here. Like every match they have two look to be pretty free wins, I'd say, like or not free, but like pretty easy wins, and then two tougher wins and one really tough win if they make it. But they only need to what, like 3 wins, right? So probably need like around 3 to be safe-ish. I don't know if they need more.
Yeah, I mean their backroom staff as well has proved quite a few times that they're not going to fucking slack off now. I think they have one of the better backroom staffs in the league right now. So
yeah, I'm not super worried about them. If they lose a match that's winnable though, like if they were to lose to like let's say they lose to the like pretty much if they lose to Rain, I think they're probably done. I think Rain is like
Rain is the last match. So
yeah, Rain's kind of like their must-win match.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think it really comes down to who ends up at the bottom, right? Like because 8 teams qualify for the North American tournament. I think it's weird to really like who is the bottom 5 is the question, because there are some teams that we would usually assume is going to be in the bottom who are going to be in the top, and like other ones, like what happens to Washington Justice? Like do Washington Justice like give up their spot essentially because they decide to like not be good because they trade their players? Like I think Gladiators is probably very dependent on what other people do rather than themselves.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's jump into the Atlanta Rain then. They also take 2 losses, but they don't lose to Shock. They don't lose, not Shock. They don't lose to like the likes of Dallas Fuel. They lose to Boston Uprising and the Toronto Defiant. I think Nero came out with a tweet afterwards that he wasn't feeling comfortable playing Genji in this meta as well. And while we usually just like accept that Atlanta Rain, they're not like the greatest regular season team, but come tournaments, they're elite, they're competitive, they always make top 3. Starting out the stage, losing to the Boston Uprising and Toronto Defiant, it's not preferred if you're a Rain fan by any means. Is there any loss of faith in the Atlanta Rain? Do we still think they're capable of being really good in this meta, or do we think that this meta is just like one of those that doesn't really cater to their player strengths? And
the silver lining for them is that they actually had a pretty easy stage. Like you would think losing to Toronto and Boston, you're like, oh man, they must have harder teams later on. They actually still play Paris and London, 2 teams that don't look that good in this meta. And then if that's true, then they, if we're going with the 3-3 narrative, they have to beat either Houston or Gladiators to qualify for the thing, which is later in the stage. So maybe they'll get it together. But I am worried about them. Like they, regardless of, what their schedule is like, they just don't look comfortable at all. We hype up Hawk as, the JOAT. But he actually didn't look super comfortable on the Junker Queen. I thought he would be much more comfortable on that one. The backline really struggling to, work together. I feel like Ultraviolet on the Brig has kind of been struggling. So, and then, Nero even said it himself, he's been struggling. So I believe that they'll get it together. I don't think they're going to be a top 3 in the playoffs kind of contender unless something really snaps with them. But I think they can definitely still qualify. I don't think you need to be too worried about this team just yet. But,
I could see them if they make the stage playoffs be a really good tournament team still.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing about this team that tells me that like they can't be good in this meta. Like if anything, I could see them being great in this meta if they get it together and sort out some of these harder to spot kind of team work issues with like synergizing abilities and stuff like that. And it is noteworthy that they're playing Paris Eternal this weekend, but then speedily Turns of Age before their 4th match against Alana Spitfire. And then they play the Houston Outlaws as well. So if you're someone who speculates about the Atlanta Rain and you're like, well, I think that Nero has like limited upside as a Genji, like for this team, and like they need a better Genji player. Speedily comes of age, so that's something you could look to, perhaps if you're speculating about Atlanta and how good they are. So it'll be interesting to see if they stick to Nero or Speedly will replace him later on, because Speedly, I don't know what his access to Overwatch 2 is either.
Is he just stuck in a chamber of not being able to play the game at all? Honestly, maybe, right? So like,
it depends on if he's been scrimming with the team or not at all. Like if he hasn't been scrimming with the team, he literally can't play. So
yeah. I don't know why they would scrim with though. That's like, so like maybe as he gets closer to the date and they are anticipating it, but like especially going 0-2 here, I don't think they have the ability and the freedom to be like, let's take some practice away from Nero and put in Speedily, because Though, like, London is a team that has forever upset the Atlanta Reign. So they could do it again. So, and, you know, we have no idea how good Paris is going to be. I talked about it earlier. Paris is a team that has a lot of experience playing this meta. As much as they are new, they are like fresh and they do that. Like, they could come in and surprise a lot of people, and then specifically the Atlanta Reign. So it might not even matter. Like, we might not even get to the point of speedily as the determining factor of if they make the playoffs or not.
All right. So we've already discussed earlier this episode how it's a bit harder to distinguish like moments that stand out in the game, like moments that like turn matches around, and like or like the linchpins each weekend. So I think we'll just take it to the power rankings next, and we just battle it out there. We hammer it out there. Who were the teams that stood out to us? Good, bad, the future prospects of the team. We didn't discuss the Dallas Fuel, and obviously us placing them fairly low last week. So we could commit to that topic in this power ranking segment, where we change up some of the teams. Obviously, teams like New York, like Vancouver Titans, they're no longer at the bottom. Probably deserve to be in the middle. So let's just hash it out. The Dallas Fuel, as we sort of discussed their placement in the power ranking, what do we think? Is Dallas Fuel like a top 3 team now? Hanbin looked like a great jungle queen.
I think Dallas is second below the San Francisco Shock.
I think Dallas is first above the
Ah,
Shock.
you fucking would. You. How? Why? Where?
I'm going to tell you my reasoning. I think both the matches Dallas played, their coordination was pretty incredible. Even when he was swapping between Doha and Sparkle, they looked like old Dallas. Their mechanics, Hanbin looked like arguably the best jungle queen in America.
I agree.
I think their backline was great. Like Fielder going to the Brigida didn't really make much of a difference for them. I think also the Edison swap has fixed. Like Edison, like the biggest gap with the Fuel consistently was like Gurio didn't look that good. They didn't have like that hit scan oomph. Edison looked good.
Yeah.
Edison looked good. That fixes the biggest issue in terms of like player roster hole wise for the Fuel, was having a consistently good hit scan player. And Edison looks really good. So, and their coordination looked incredible. Shock, I think in Shock's first match that they played, not their second. Their second, they looked like they looked great in their second match. But in their very first match, which I believe was versus Justice, like obviously Justice played really well, I think, but I think Shock were still lagging. While Fuel seemed like they'd walked into this meta like locked in. Like they were locked in. Now I could make the argument that, you know, Fuel almost, you know, nearly got, like they nearly lost to the New York, right? So you could bring that up. But sometimes when you almost lose New York, it's just because some Yaki pulls out the big turbo dick mode and literally it's just solo carry plays, right? Like it's not like you're losing strategically. Yaki is just hitting every single shot, dash, and blade. Like he's just better. He was just better during them. But they still won.
Better
and they
than proper.
still won. And they also still won, is the point. So while I don't think Shock, granted, Shock did play versus Happy and Decay, and a Mag looked a lot better. So it's kind of a gut feeling. It's a gut feeling because on top of that, I know, I mean, it's a gut feeling because to me, Fuel haven't looked great, but I'm just getting that they fixed their roster whole issue, which was one of the big reasons I rated them low on top of their overall coordination coming in. But like, if Edison's going to play consistently, and Hanbin's going to look this good, and Sparkle or Doha are going to be on Genji, this team's really scary. This team scares me more than Shock.
I think the Dallas Fuel have a better backline in this meta than the Shock, but I think the Shock DPS is better than the Dallas DPS. And I think, you know, Hanbin is the better jungle queen, but I just trust the Shock more than I do the Dallas Fuel. I like Dallas Fuel is still a great team. I think they're number 2. I don't know if anyone else really wants to put Dallas at number 1.
We need tiebreakers.
I mean, credit to Jaws. He was the only one on this podcast last week who actually was like rating Dallas this low is a crime. And so
Jaws he did get that one right, but also, you know, I didn't expect them to pull out Edison and have an actually incredible hit scan player, you know? Didn't expect it. So
I'll prefer to have Shock remain at number 1 for now.
Fair enough. I'll
Fuel
cede
will
it. I'll
convince
cede it.
me.
It's a hot
One
take.
Fuel second. It
Yeah.
is.
I'll
It
take-
is a hot take. But
No,
that's
it's a
fine.
hot take for me putting Fuel at 1. I'm saying not Shock 1, but Fuel.
Yeah.
All right.
Like you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Do we want a tier break under Dallas Fuel? Because those were the 2 teams that
Yes.
like really stood out.
probably
Okay.
yes.
Tier break there, and then enter Clusterfuck. I have no idea
Yeah.
who to put 3rd or 4th. I've asked Custa. You guys have already made your own personal
done
power
ours.
ranking, so I feel like you guys can like butt heads.
We're gonna disagree here too.
Well,
We're gonna disagree
okay,
here.
here's the thing, is I would usually put the Gladiators at number 3, but Houston beat the Gladiators. So the only way you can put the Gladiators above Houston is you act as if that was like a one-off and that you believe in the Gladiators to bounce back from that. I'm not 100% sold. I actually think Houston looks really good in this meta. So I want to put Houston at 3 and Gladiators at 4. Interesting.
Because I had a different team at number 3.
It better not be New York. That's all
I
I'm
was
saying.
about to say, is it New York?
I'm pretty sure
Oh,
it's
you
New
mean
York.
the team? You mean the team that beat Houston? You mean that team? You mean the team that beat Houston? That team? You mean the team that beat Houston?
Outlaws?
And then also the team that had obviously not the closest game ever, but still a pretty good game versus the Fuel.
Can't tell me on it. I'm not
Why not?
buying.
They literally
I'm not
beat
fucking buying.
Houston
They don't even have a fucking head coach, okay?
They-
Let alone
who-
they're
they
in a
beat
honeymoon
Houston.
period with Alanson J. I don't want to fucking hear it. Houston Outlaws and the Gladiators are fundamentally better teams than the New York Excelsior. And New York Excelsior has one good weekend. That's Yaki's weekend. He's fucking done and dusted for the stage, okay? He's not going to show up anymore.
Now, I would
okay?
like the court to recognize the jury to recognize this man is clearly biased versus Yaki. This man
I
clearly
am
was
biased
not-
versus
the jury
Yaki,
selection
okay?
process
Yeah,
was
the jury,
biased
I am
against
biased towards Yaki. You can ignore anything I say, but Yaki, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. Pelican and Merit are fucking insane.
Oh, yeah,
Did
they're
you
insane.
watch
Put
those two
Houston at
people
3.
play this fucking meta?
They
Pelican
are, but
deadlifted Gibraltar.
they are insane. They nearly lost. I mean, they certainly lost the Glads where Reiner was playing, where they're not playing their best, and they had Shu on DPS though. So
True.
and Houston lost to New York.
But Gladiators are going to get their shit together. They always do. Hopefully, Paddy Pen can come out of fucking risk jail. And I think the Houston Outlaws, I think they are going to be very good in this meta. I think Lep looks way better. If they stick to Dante, put all their resources into playing Dante Junker Queen, they're going to be good. They're going to be good.
I'm agreeing with this. I'm actually agreeing.
If we're gonna overrate it, let it be known I fought for New York 3. Let it be known I fought.
Let it-
for
yeah,
We're
okay.
going to put them at 4. So, like, come on. We're
No,
not.
I want them at 5.
We're not just fucking.
That's crazy. You're crazy. This man. This is insane. I'll
One
give
step
you.
at a time. Houston 3. Houston 3. That Pelican and Merit had an absolutely fucking amazing game against
gonna
the
be so
Gladiators.
good in
Like,
this
it
meta.
was unbelievable. And then, they did play some Doge versus New York Excelsior. I don't know what that was about. And then they played
Outlaws.
Dante.
New York, then Glads.
You guys
I
are
pick
acting
that.
like the Gladiators aren't going to bounce back.
Outlaws.
Like, you guys believe that...
But
sorry,
it's
you go
not.
back.
But it's
New
not
York
just
lads.
about. It's not just about Gladiators bouncing back. It's also thinking about I do think Glads are going to bounce back. But New York looked legitimately good. They beat Outlaws,
And that's why they're at
And
5th,
they had a
coming out
good
of
match
13th.
versus Fuel. I mean,
Wait.
but the thing is, this isn't based off last. But this is the current week 1 rankings of this meta, though.
But,
you know?
if you want to just do week 1 rankings, you have to put some form of analysis and thought into it. Otherwise, we'll just pull up the power, the standings of where we are right now, and put those people on top.
But my analysis is that I think New York actually understand the meta. Their team
So
makes
you
sense.
think overall in this meta for the rest of
Right now.
for the rest of this stage? No, because you have to look forward. You think if the Gladiators played New York this upcoming weekend, who would you go for? Yeah, fuck you, yeah. You're
York.
telling me you
New
know
York,
you got
baby.
you got
New
your fucking
York.
grit in your teeth. You know
New
I'm
York,
right.
baby.
You know I'm right.
Gladiators
You
four.
would go for the Gladiators.
Gladiators 4. Yeah.
No,
No,
I mean,
I actually would put New York 4th, but
I
you
would,
know what?
if it was next week, I'd put New York over Glads, but then the week after, I'd put Glads over New York.
but
Yeah,
no,
I
that
give
would
them
depend on
time.
that would depend on the match. No. You can't go 2 weeks in advance, can you? Oh,
The whole
Yeah,
point is
you
it's all
guys
predictive
definitely
for the whole
can.
stage. We've already said it's
Yeah.
predictive for the whole stage. As of right now, if New York keeps the performance like it did this weekend, the rest of the time, and even with Gladiators improvement, I think New York could still be a top 3 team in North America the whole stage if they with the meta understanding and Yaki popping the fuck off and a complete team. Now they have Ansun J on main support. I think they could do it. Like, listen, dude. I mean, they have. This team should not like. Granted, top 5 is still really good, right? But like,
It's very
this
good.
team is
They came from
good.
13th.
It should be good. This
team is
team should be
decent.
good.
They
And
are
on top of
good.
that,
They are good. But the LA
and on
Gladiators.
top of that, their
the two-time
understanding
winners.
of the meta looks so much like they look so much better. Like the tempo, the pace, Keller was having impact. Like, I don't know. I'll give
the
you
Gladiators
fourth. I
played
think
Houston
fourth.
and Dallas.
Yeah.
Two top 3 teams, and I feel like that has to have an impact. Like the LA Gladiators, they played really good teams.
New York
And New York is
played
such a-
Fuel
they-
and
they don't
Outlaws.
feel- they play-
What the fuck are we talking about? You're just using the same logic back and forth. Listen, I'll give you fourth. I'll
Dude,
give you
this
New York
episode has gone
fourth.
for too long. Fuck me.
Put
man.
New York fourth. New York fourth. Just do it. Put New York fourth. I'll give you that. But I'll give them fourth. I think they deserve to go fourth.
Wait, what do you mean you
That
give him
is
fourth?
much
You
better.
just like fine. I'll concede. I'll do exactly what I wanted to do.
No, what I want to do
He
is put
wanted
them
them
third.
third. He wanted them third. Yeah.
No, I've already lost.
But
I've
you
already
know what?
lost my original one.
Okay, are you guys gonna let this
one
happen?
is
I want.
infinitely better.
I am not happy with this. I want Gladiators at fourth, but if you guys are willing to overrule me,
No. We're putting Gladiators at 4th. I'm sorry.
thank you,
Avast.
Johnny.
It's a 2v2.
Sorry.
It's a 2v2.
Oh my
It's a
God.
2v2. No, Kurt
It's
has to break.
2v2.
Kurt has to
You're
break.
up.
Kurt, what do you think?
Kurt, make the break.
I'm just gonna keep it. It's so funny this way.
Oh my
There
god.
It's
we
good.
go.
It's good.
There we
Dude,
go.
when-
My heart's
New
telling me
York-
it's wrong, but content.
Yeah.
There we go.
Over
Oh,
time, I think Glads will be better, but right now, New York. 100%.
What are we doing
There
here?
we go.
Yeah,
are
what the
we-
fuck are we doing? Oh my god. I can't believe
Winning.
people are still listening to
Making
this.
a good podcast is what we're
Number
doing.
6. Toronto Defiant, Atlanta Spitfire, Atlanta Reign, Boston Uprising. Who are we going with? Vancouver Titans? Washington?
No.
No, Washington
Something
doesn't matter
in
anymore.
Ireland.
Titans, he says.
The bottom doesn't matter anymore. The six
It's
onwards-
gotta be.
It doesn't
It's
matter.
gotta
It's
be.
Toronto?
But it's
It's
him,
gotta
right?
has
be
to be.
Toronto
I'd say.
or Justice. It's gotta be one of the two.
Dude, but Justice
Definitely
just
put a
gave
tier break
like
there.
their best Junker Queen player, and potentially more in the future.
Yeah, I agree. So I think based off this alone, it probably should be Defiant currently.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
tier break.
I can see that.
All right, we good with that?
I think a tier break above Toronto, but
I mean,
But I think Toronto's better than all the teams below them. But like, I would be confident in Toronto. Like, I think Toronto.
I would bet Toronto above all the rest. Yeah, but does that define a tier break though? Being like I think a tier break is like exceptionally like.
Do you
fucking
think there's that
blows
big of a
everybody else out
difference
the
between
water.
New York Gladiators and Toronto?
What?
Toronto did almost
Nah.
lose to Vancouver.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I just don't. I don't know. This is a hard one. Like, I think Toronto is.
I think you
think
put the
with
tier
more
break
time-
above Toronto. Don't you?
No,
I think
I
you
don't
can.
think so.
I think Toronto
Defiant could have
stays
good
here.
games. Yeah, Defiant could have good games versus all those teams. I think in this meta.
I think putting it right there is fine.
Yeah, I think below Defiant is fine.
We could skip the tier break because I don't think like Toronto is like invincible against number 7 or 8.
But my vote for 7 is gonna be Justice, but who knows what they're gonna. But I don't
Mag
even know,
anymore.
right?
Dude.
Like what we don't have Mag anymore, right? So I don't even know like what to do about. I don't know what to do about Justice. Actually,
I would
don't
like to
even know what
put.
do about
I would like to put forth another Washington Justice banishment of the power rankings for now.
That's a good one. That's a real good one.
You know, I'm always willing to do that to the Justice. So yeah, that's fair enough.
There you go.
There you go.
Justice.
Okay, they get
There you go.
banished.
Justice are no longer ranked.
Okay.
All right.
Boston.
Boston. They got
Boston
3-0 by
just
London.
got
They got
fucked by
3-0
London.
by London.
Owed by London. Because London
Boston.
stopped trolling. London stopped trolling is the thing. London ceased their troll and got off Sombra. They stopped trolling.
Yeah.
They should not be above London. There's no way because London simply inted. with
So
the
do you
Sombra
put
pick.
like Florida 7 then? Because they
No.
beat London?
I think you should. Well,
you
maybe.
what? London, Reign, Boston, like this? What it is right now?
Well,
I'm actually pretty happy. I mean, I'm happy to put Mayhem, Spitfire, Boston.
Mayhem,
is-
London.
I'm happy for
Boston.
I'm
right.
happy for Mayhem Spitfire Boston as well.
Yeah, Mayhem, Spitfire, Boston. I think sounds reasonable to me.
I think. Okay, here, can I sell you on Vancouver being above Boston?
Ooh, no.
I'd like to hear it.
I like because Vancouver Aspire is a fucking Chad on
He
that
is.
Sojourn. He is going absolutely crazy. I think he's been stepping up. King will get more comfortable. I think Mirror on the Junker Queen is a good pick. I think the meta could be good for them. And Boston just got absolute. Who did they get rolled by? They got rolled by London?
London, yeah.
And it wasn't
London
close.
dominated.
Like,
No,
so
that's because
are we
Boston's entirely been on their
overrating?
DPS showing
Yeah,
up.
but are we
The DPS
overrating Boston just because they beat Atlanta? But we know how bad Atlanta is. So it's like maybe Vancouver should be above those guys.
With his Spy's performance, I'd have to agree.
Well, also, I think
it was the Paris Eternal that knew they were getting dropped.
Yeah, but Aspire is like consistently good on the Sojourn. Like,
They also
even in
almost
last
beat
meta.
Toronto. Like, I don't think that was Toronto playing
Yeah.
down. I think that was Vancouver playing up.
But also, I do think that across the board, Boston's backline is better. I think their tank player is better. And I think when the Boston DPS show up, they're great. The biggest problem is the Boston DPS. It's like they're either doing great or they're invisible. Those are the only two options for Boston DPS generally. So that's the issue with this team for me is that holistically, I like the team more. And if their DPS show up, they're definitely better. If their DPS don't show up on that day because they're less consistent than the Titans DPS, then they lose.
Yeah, I'll actually put Vancouver over Boston here. The damage argument has really swayed me here. I think King is good.
Boston.
I think King's Genji is pretty good. And Aspire is correct.
Boston
And just how much this meta revolves around the Sojourn getting picks.
Exactly, yeah.
I think Aspire
I
is just
take
on a different
consistent
level.
DPS over
the
anything
people
else.
around
I
him.
think that's one of the more important things. in this meta.
Sure, fair enough. I feel like that still historically and everything, like it just feels like Boston's better team, but I'll give you Titans. Titans go to 9 if that's what we want to go with.
Can I interest you in Atlanta over Boston?
No.
I just needed it to be asked, okay? Someone watching the stream was wondering what the fuck was going on, so I had to ask the question.
Once again, we're gonna have to have a quick logic check here though, because if we truly believe Atlanta's gonna be this bad whole stage, and my answer is no, I don't think so.
No, but
so then how does that any different to like a lot of the rest?
well,
of this
because my question is right now is so Paris, do you guys believe Paris should be above Atlanta? Like, do you think Atlanta is going to beat?
Absolutely not.
No.
How is that even worse? Even
Absolutely.
how is that? How is
Because
that
it is Paris with a new roster. The new Paris roster,
How is that
they're
even?
going to be good.
No.
It's an unknown. It's a complete unknown. No.
Here's the thing.
No.
You can't even speculate on that.
I low-key believe in the Paris Eternal.
I think the new Paris roster could.
They just won A-sides.
I'm not saying they will. I'm saying they could. You could tell me that they would like beat London, Vancouver, Boston, Atlanta, and I'd buy it.
Yeah. And that's why I think Atlanta, like, okay, this is like a mega disrespectful to Atlanta, and it is literally just because of how badly they played this weekend. And I think Paris, they have just acquired 4 players that all just popped off in A-sides playing a very similar meta. So coming from an Atlanta Reign team that they are definitely a better team as a whole, but they do not understand how to play this meta. Self-proclaimed do not know how to play this meta. Paris Eternal is coming out of contenders as the best team in North America, playing that A-sides composition with the Junker Queen. They are going to be ready. I think that there's a bigger chance that Paris can beat Atlanta than I think people are giving them credit for.
The right thing to do is just not rank them.
Smoke the crack. I don't think there's it's literally an unknown versus.
What?
Like,
Oh wait, what if we just take
It's not
Eternal?
an
What if we take
unknown.
Eternal
Like,
off the list too? Because
We
it's not the
should.
same roster.
The right thing to do is take them off
I'm
the
happy to
list.
take
The right
Paris off
thing
the
to do is
list.
take them off
I'm
the
happy to
list.
take Paris off the list if you
Okay,
want.
sure.
If you
Fair
want to
enough.
banish them to the Netherrealm,
Because if
that's
we
fine
can
with me.
take Justice off the list, Eternal should go off the list. It's either they both have to go on or they both have to go off.
Yeah.
Justice have only lost 1 player, and we're taking him off the list.
But that's
I
because
like
we
the
don't
20
know. I think
seconds
there's
of
going to be
Custa
more
saying that,
drops
though.
by Washington.
Sure.
As do I. That's the thing. I also believe that, but also I believe that, like, by that vein, like, we don't know what Eternals necessarily, like, we don't truly know what Eternals going to be doing. But I mean, actually, to be fair, we do know where Eternals going to go because you know the roster. So actually, they probably
That's
should
sort
be
of
on the
why.
power
That's why I think Paris should be on the list, is because we do have some form of speculation of it.
I
But
can't,
if
in
you
good
guys
conscience,
can't-
put them
if
above
I-
the rain, though.
If you can't put them, that's fine with me.
I can't
As I said,
in good conscience put them above the
I
rain.
did it for memes for on my list, but like I agree that Atlanta is just a better team, and like they are a great thing, but they always troll in the regular season usually, and they just do not look comfortable in this meta
That's
right
what
now.
I hate about the rain is that every time I talk like, man, they're not looking good, they come back and fucking dominate.
Exactly. So they could
I just-
easily come in and just be good this weekend. And like I wouldn't be shocked. Like people like you're really gambling of does the team get their shit together, get well coached, all that kind of stuff. But they knew this was coming for a while and they still haven't worked it out. Do we think this like 5 days is gonna be enough for them to solve it? Like, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did figure it out. As we said, we have a lot of faith in the franchise, and like they always come back. And also, like, you said the trolling, and like I get what you say with like the trolling, but just to be abundantly clear to like listeners, it's not like they're actually trolling. It's just like they are inconsistent in the regular season, but we still have a tremendous amount of respect for the franchise and their achievements. So we do respect Atlanta. It just so happens that they didn't look good in week 1.
Well, also, they're last kind of technically on our list right now because of the weirdness of Paris. This isn't, I think, Atlanta having a crazy fall from grace. I actually think a lot of these teams got good in this meta. Like Vancouver, Boston, Florida, London, they actually all look to have some form of coherent thought, and the meta makes sense for these teams. So I think it just doesn't play to Atlanta Reign's strengths right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when you look at some of these rosters, like the Boston Uprising, it's taken some time, but they've fucking come a long way since week 1 and 2, where they had like 10 people they were rotating around and subbing in and subbing out. Like the Boston Uprising, they have an idea of what they are, who they are, and they look good in this meta now with like competent players on each role. Vancouver Titans has finally fucking found something to rely on. They went through a coaching change. They picked up King as well, and they're finally looking good. London Spitfire, I mean, they did look good on the Reinhardt meta already. But it's true what you're saying, that like some of these teams, it's been a tough season for them. New York Excelsior, hell, even those guys. It's been a tough season for them so far, but like they've finally figured out who they are and where they are, and it's paying dividends. They're finally finding some success with that.
Right.
So,
well, I'm happy with this. Everyone else happy?
Yeah, I'm happy with this too. So for the audio listeners, before we take it off, sorry, for the audio listeners, Kurt, let me just go through it real quick. So we got San Francisco Shock number 1, Dallas Fuel number 2, Tier Break, Houston Outlaws number 3, New York Excelsior number 4, LA Gladiators number 5, Toronto Defiant number 6, Tier Break, Florida Mayhem number 7, London Spitfire number 8, Vancouver Titans number 9, Boston Uprising, Atlanta Reign, and then I guess it's, Atlanta Reign, they're technically the last, but we don't rank Paris and Washington Justice. So there you go. But if we rank Paris Eternal, it would be fun, probably like above Boston or something. They do look good. The contenders matchup did look good. So, it's going to be fun to see Paris play Atlanta this upcoming week. Let's jump into some predictions real quick, because this is going to be like a 3-hour podcast. Let's get into predictions for this upcoming week. And also we have some APAC games returning. We'll start off with the Western region, the North American games. And the first game for week 2 is going to be, actually, do you want to take a look at the last week's records first? Or how we did? How we fared? Because I did not fare well. I did not do good because I predicted London.
I had a rough weekend.
I don't remember how I did. Hey!
Johnny won! Not too bad. Not too bad.
Let's go, baby.
Custa, Jaws, and Avast, all 3-3. I'm 4-2. Total record, Avast still in the lead with 33 correct predictions.
Let's go, baby.
Also has a good win rate though, 67%.
Oh, damn.
He's in the lead win rate wise.
Yeah, but he doesn't have. He needs more.
I need
numbers.
the.
There's a rookie numbers, 12 and 6.
12 and 6, dude. What? It's my fault that I don't fucking come on often.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
clearly fucking, yeah.
Well,
Who
we're
else
gonna
is
add
normally in my spot? Hang on a second. Who the fuck normally plays here?
Sideshow or Bren.
We have Sideshow.
Yeah, that's true. I just need to
But we're about to add 6 more matches under Joe's belt, and then after this week, maybe he can proclaim himself actually like the Pred King. So let's kick it off. Vancouver Titans against the New York Excelsior. Here we go. We're all going with the New York Excelsior. I guess in hindsight, kind of obvious that we all went with the New York Excelsior, but still a fun matchup nonetheless, because 2 bottom teams going into the
actually
stage
is going to be
now looking good.
This match actually might be a gigabanger. Yeah, straight up.
Could be a good match. Yeah, we'll see.
Depends if Yaki shows up.
I'm tired of this guy. I'm tired of this dude. We
certifying this?
We should probably. We should certify it.
Johnny's not impressed.
Johnny, you never fit the photos ever. You don't
what do you
fit
mean?
them.
Never
You're not
fit
putting
the
in the
photos?
effort to win the photo.
What do you mean? I'm all right. Okay, whatever. Next match. The LA Gladiators taking on the San Francisco Shock. I feel like this one will be kind of one-sided too.
Yeah, I think it's hard to predict against the Shock right now.
Yeah,
it is. But this will, nevertheless, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, like the win streak matchup, right?
Yeah. They will break the Vancouver Titans for regular season.
Will they break it or tie it?
I think it's tie it. Sorry, I think you're right. But it's
They're
like
18-0 now.
It's kind of weird because it's also like it's using last season, which is a completely different roster. So I think it's kind of weird to do that as a franchise, but hey, that's how it works.
Sorry,
just be like 14-0 right now.
It's Yeah, they're 14-0, and then I think the other wins were like from the other season.
From last season, yeah.
Yeah, so they're adding up. So they would tie it against the LA Gladiators.
Vancouver Titans.
Yes, they would tie the Vancouver Titans. Anyway, for our next matchup, we got the Florida Mayhem taking on the Washington Justice without Mag, by the way.
Yeah,
we all predict the Florida Mayhem.
Yeah.
Look, we'll find. Look, the APAC's gonna be lit. Okay, I'm sure we'll.
I'm
just
looking forward to the
Sick.
APAC Preds. Yeah, we're just throwing shit at the wall at this point.
Yeah, we're just throwing shit at the wall. Fucking.
Wait,
we don't have anything.
were we supposed to? Fuck, were we supposed to do APAC Preds? I didn't think I saw that on the list.
Oh, you didn't do APAC Preds in the spreadsheet?
Oh damn, that
What was
sucks,
on
Jack.
this-
That you're gonna lose all 3 of those
No,
Preds.
no,
They're
no,
gonna
no,
lose
no,
all three of
no,
those?
no. Let me scroll down. Wait, no, they weren't on the fucking list.
They should have been, yeah. They're on everyone
Really?
else's
They
list,
weren't
yeah.
on. Oh, they were on the list. No, I'm blind. I'm
Yeah,
blind.
there's- yeah,
But you
I was
don't
gonna
know.
say, Jack, you literally picked
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah, I
did
know.
pick
I was
teams.
like, okay, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's okay.
Everybody
Everything's
calm
dandy.
down.
Everybody calm down. I'm gonna protect the win streak. We're good.
All right, we did pick APAC team. So let's get into APAC. We got the Hangzhou Spark taking on the Seoul Dynasty. Here we go, boys.
Here we go, Johnny. Let's
Yes.
go, Johnny.
Ooh.
Me and Custa with the Hangzhou Spark and JOATS and Avast pick Seoul Dynasty to kick off week 1 of APAC. I don't need to say more. We've seen Sojourn fuck and Hangzhou Spark have Shy. That's all I care
Yeah,
about.
shy.
Yeah.
I will give you that.
And Alpha
Dynasty
Yi
has
Genji.
Fitz and Stalker still. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking
Also-
budget
Wow, I'm
Shy.
so scared.
They have fucking Smurf.
Yeah, they got Smurf. They got creative also in a non like he gets they're not worried about flexible impact essentially. It's like your Brigida, right? And then they get Vindem on Lucio. Like I think this is a great meta for Dynasty because I would say creative is like arguably, despite his team being incredible, he has the least amount of range at times, it seems, on flex support heroes for like huge impact. But we know that he's pretty good at Brigida. So like time to get him off there and like go push and break. So like I think it's fine. I think overall this is great for Soul. This is good.
I think
Smurf
it's
is still one of the
great.
best tanks.
I
in the
think
league.
both of these teams are going to be good in this meta. I just don't know which one's going to be better, right? Like I just like I saw Shy play in the midseason Madness and I was like, yeah, sure. He's gonna probably fucking pound again. Like
Yeah, him and Alfie both are probably very good.
Yeah, it feels like Alpha is still somewhat overshadowed for good reason by Shy, but Alpha is actually just like a fucking great.
He is a
as well.
freak. He is a freak.
He's a
freak.
Genji.
And I could see Spark being the best team in APAC, but I could still see Dynasty reclaiming their throne. So, and I believe in Dynasty for their overall.
A true 50-50 between Seoul Dynasty and Hangzhou Spark. Looking forward to that one. Next up, got the Shanghai Dragons against the Hangzhou Spark. So we'll get a bit of a feel for Avast and Jaws.
How you guys
committed they are.
feeling?
Jaws committed to the Shanghai Dragons.
Dude, they're still fucking good. Don't worry. Don't worry. I know Shy exists, okay, and I know Alpha Yi fucks, but Fleda, listen.
Fleta's not going to play.
Fledder's not going to play. They're going to play Who Are You?
It's going to be who are you?
Who are you spinning the chamber? Who are you spinning the chamber? Genji's still the best in the fucking league. I know there are some fucking Who Are You simps out there still. I believe in the Seoul Dynasty.
Okay,
You still
so-
can't count them out.
Okay. You imagine you had me convinced with the Who Are You Genji argument. Who
Okay.
Are You is better than Alpha E, okay? Theoretically, I don't buy it, but let's pretend I buy it. What about your Junker Queen player? How confident are you in your
Yeah, who's going to play it for you,
Queen
Jack?
player?
Who's your money on?
I may have sped run these Preds. I may have printed wrong and I may have printed like maybe 20 minutes for the broadcast.
Here
the
is-
fucking podcast.
Here is the problem with Shanghai Dragons with the Junker Queen problem. I think that they look way better when Fate is in the lineup. He just seems to bring a lot of cohesion and coordination to them. But Fate does not have great, in my opinion, like mechanics that I think Junker Queen is very demanding of. The shotgun needs to be very clean. If you've seen him aim on Wrecking Ball, it's a crapshoot. He's a very smart player, but I don't think Junker Queen is much about being smart as it is about hitting those skill shots. With the dagger as well. So I think Void would be the better option, but every time Void is in as the solo tank, they look a lot more lost. So I'm a little worried that they don't have the best of both worlds coming together. They could merge them. They'd be great. And then also Izayaki on the brig. He's a very talented flex support, very good at Zenyatta, very good at those Annas. I don't know how good he's going to be at the brig, so I'm kind of curious to see that one as well.
I will say, and I know this is not what you're saying, Scott, either about Fate as the Junker Queen. He is a very smart player, and the mechanical skill is important. Obviously, with a slower generating ultimate as well, you need to make sure to hit those shotgun shots to be able to like get it at a respectable pace. I do question though, like with smarts on Junker Queen, just like a bit sheer ability usage, like rampage usage, direction you rampage, axe and stuff like that. Like how far you can get with really good ability usage versus requiring like mechanical skill to separate yourself from some Junker Queen players, because it still feels like rampage, obviously, non-argument, is like the best ultimate in the game when it comes to like winning team fights. Like the value you are able to secure by anti-nading the entire enemy team and like making them bleed is massive. And I feel like still, as we are early on in this stage, a big difference between Junker Queen players has honestly been like rampage usage. Like, are you wasting rampage? Are you making sure that you hit every rampage, that you're winning fights based on your rampage? And so that's a single ability that, whether you use it correctly or incorrectly, can make a massive difference for your team and like if you're perceived a good or bad Junker Queen player. So while I agree with you that Fate is not my like go-to pick for being a great mechanically skilled Junker Queen player, I do wonder if he can like carry with his intellectuals to like a very respectable Junker Queen play, and whether that is enough for Shanghai Dragons to like have a pretty good summer showdown performance. So we'll see. But I do think Hydro Spark are favored here.
Oh, those takes, I fucked up.
It's never over. It's never over.
Hey, don't believe.
You never know. You never know about the Hydro Spark. Maybe they'll drop someone. Who knows?
Possible.
Changoon effect could come through.
Changoon effect. We got one more matchup to predict. And this might be a true 50-50 as well. We have the Guangzhou Charge taking on the LA Valiant. Oh boy. We all went with the Guangzhou Charge.
There it is.
For good reason, I think we all predicted the Guangzhou Charge here, though. There is some logic to it.
Jimmy's gonna fuck. That's why. Funnily enough, so the reason I think that Johnny was stating is that the Guangzhou Charge, a lot of their players have played in contenders. Yes, they didn't do great in the contenders matchup, but they have some experience, and I think they have a better roster. I think, funnily enough, I think Jimmy is the better hit scan over Apritta from what we saw from those contenders matches. But they now have Yveltal, who is now called Xerneas, on the Lucio, and we know how good of a main support they are. We got Molly on the, could be good at the Brig. I don't know. But like, there's a path forward, while LA Valiant is just such a enigma to me. Like, I don't know what to expect from them. Like, Becky's going to play Genji. I don't know who's going to play the Sojin for them. Who's going to be the tank? Is it going to be Marvel? We know how flexible he is. Or is it going to be Sashin, the mechanical warlord? Like, I don't know. I just don't trust the Valiant right now.
I do feel like Marvel would have been like a tank that I could see pick up Junker Queen, like to some extent. I don't know why, but Marvel is like one of those players. He is an enigma as well. He's able to play the Sigma. He's able to play off tank. He's able to play main tank, and he's good. He's all over the place. I don't know what his place in the Overwatch League is. He kind of just bounce around his teams and exists. But I could see him pick up the Junker Queen. And then you have like the no-heal effect, where it's like they're playing like Lucio Sen comps and stuff like that. And I'm like, I have no fucking idea what these guys are going to come out and do and who's going to play what. I don't have a ton of respect for Becky's Genjis. I got a compilation of Becky lowlights on my computer. I don't know why, but I just did some research before the season and saved some clips. Yeah, I don't really trust LA Valiant either. Hopefully this is the start of something good for Guangzhou Charge, though. So, all right.
Yeah.
There you have it. One more quick segment to do. It's Brent's Player of the Week. I don't have any candidates for this week. What do we think? It's been a chaotic weekend. You could go many directions with this. Either you could go like Vancouver Titans and their win. You could go someone else in the Overwatch League who had a good showing. Someone yesterday who popped up on Twitter, good tweets. I don't know, anything. I don't know if this is scientific community did anything. Did take a week off?
Accommodating the entire team.
Who?
Yeah, No Hill's bed.
Could it be No Hill's bed for accommodating the entire team?
I think it's a fun one.
Just No Hill. Yeah.
That's right.
Because they posted
No,
a
not
picture of his bed.
No, his bed.
His bed.
Are you
his bed? His base of operations. His bed.
Custa, please tell me there's someone else who did something great this past week.
You had a good tweet this week.
No, I don't really know
Wub
if
had
anything.
a good tweet.
Wub?
Wub had a really good tweet after the roster. After the roster got dropped, he did the Halo. He did the Halo Reach mission survive.
Yeah.
The mission survive tweet.
Oh shit.
That was pretty funny.
I don't have anything better for you, Johnny.
You're an objective survive.
That's a good tweet.
And also, you know what? Yeah, I want to give it to Wub just because I'm a Wub head. You know, I like when Wub pulls out his Gigi plate and says it's Wubbin time. And I think it's I'm enjoying Wub. You know, he's been having a rough season. I thought his meme was funny. Honestly, his Genji's not bad. Like, it's his best hero. Like, you know, it's been overall like.
He gets an unreasonable amount of hate as well.
He does.
For the situation that he's been put in. Yeah, I'm happy for Wub.
Yeah. It might be the last week he plays because now Malfeld comes in and he's a Genji player that's playing this meta, and maybe Malfeld brings the Pharah play as well. They did play quite a bit of Pharah in the finals, so interesting to see if Malfeld is just like, yo, the Overwatch League don't know about the Pharah counter here.
He's about to learn about the Overwatch League hit scans real quick.
Yeah. I guess Kai in your first match. Let me pull out the Pharah real quick. It's gonna be good. All right, Wub, you're Bren's player of the week. Congratulations, Wub. Hopefully you survive, pull off your mission, accomplish it well. What a fucking episode, guys. Woo! I'm gonna go watch like some Arnold movies or something. I'm drained.
I have more work to do after this.
Epic.
I got a stream. Woo!
We wish you the best of luck with your work, Avast. And everyone go watch Custa stream. It's going to be a good time. Thank you for tuning in to Plat Chat Overwatch, episode 139. It's been good talking to you. See you guys next week. Woo!
Bye-bye.
Bye.